Now in Ottawa, 16 degrees, 13 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A decision has finally been reached on staff vaccinations and whether youngest learners will have to wear a mask in the classroom, at least at the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. Here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
It's a yes to both. A mask policy will be in place for kindergarteners at the English Public Board, which is similar to a decision that was already reached at the Catholic School Board. It goes beyond the provincial guidelines, which is to recommend mask wearing for kindergarten students. As for vaccinations for staff, it's now mandatory, but with a caveat. It will only go into effect on September 30th. The board cited logistical challenges for not implementing it immediately. Basically, if they have to remove unvaccinated teachers from the classroom, which is part of what trustees voted for, a shortage of educators means there will be no one to replace them. A separate but similar policy is also going into effect for anyone who enters school property and has contact with students, like a chaperone or a volunteer who now must be fully vaccinated. Chris Curries, City News.
City News time 9:01, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Sun and cloud today with a high near 24 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy and down to 12. Feel on the cool side, but 12 is the average low. And tomorrow, sun and cloud, the high near 20. For today, the high near 24.
And right now, 16 degrees in Ottawa. It's 13 in Smiths Falls. The province of Ontario is set to announce a highly anticipated COVID-19 vaccine certification system. This will come this afternoon. Premier Doug Ford scheduled to make the announcement at 1 o'clock. A government source confirming that Ford will announce a COVID-19 proof of vaccination program that has been a contentious issue for the province. Several regional public health officers have called for the province-wide system. The government so far reluctant to introduce that. Ford will be joined at 1 o'clock at a media briefing by the health minister as well as the province's chief medical officer of health. Meanwhile, the leaders of 14 hospitals in the central region of the province have come up with a joint COVID-19 vaccination policy. They say this will ultimately lead to unpaid leave or termination for unvaccinated staff. As we enter the early stages of this fourth wave in the province, experts are keeping a close eye on yet another of the variants of COVID, this one first discovered in South Africa. City News reporter Jamie Pulfer now with what we know so far about the C12 variant.
Experts say that it's the evolution of a pandemic, a virus constantly mutating with new COVID variants emerging. And now this one, known only as C12, is getting a lot of attention online.
These are just early warning signs, but this is by far the most mutated variant of all variants down to date.
So far, no cases have been reported in this country. Queen's University infectious diseases Dr. Gerald Evans tells City News what he thinks.
What I would say bottom line is anything about C12 at this point is speculation. We do not know where it's going. It does not appear to be outcompeting the Delta variant.
Now, South African researchers recently published a study that still needs to be peer-reviewed, but it says C12 has a much faster mutation rate than any other variant worldwide. I'm Jamie Pulfer.
City News time 9:03. Federal party leaders continue their push for your vote. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau begins his day announcing his party platform at 10 o'clock this morning in Toronto. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole also in Ontario. Morning announcement at the Westin Hotel in the city. He's been using that as his main base. New Democrat head Jagmeet Singh is in Quebec for a housing announcement in Montreal. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Good, bad, or complicated.
There's no news in Ottawa and the Valley he won't talk about.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
And away we go. It'll be a very busy news day. Vaccine Passport Day in Ontario. And the Liberal Party of Canada, Team Trudeau, will release its election platform today. 17 days. You had to wait for it. 17 days into the election campaign. Good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. So glad you're making us part of your day, and you're going to want to stick with us at City News because it's going to be one of those days. Before we get to vaccine passports, Let's start with the latest on the election campaign with the Liberals releasing a platform today. Amazing, isn't it? 17 days in. They're finally offering Canadians a vision, a document. Here's what we say we're going to do. Will there be any surprises? We'll have to wait and see. I notice Bloomberg News goes with this number, $40 billion. $40 billion in spending promises. So that's what's going to be in the platform, $40 billion. But the report also says a lot of that money has been announced already. I'll tell you what, here's one of the things that I find interesting. I'm starting to think a lot of Canadians are kind of numb to Mr. Trudeau's billion-dollar announcements. $1 billion for this, $1 billion for that, $3 billion for $4 billion. I'll tell you what I mean. Okay. Yesterday, he was in Canada, stumping for Jenna Sudds. In Canada, it's going to be a close race out there. Canada-Carleton, a real battleground riding on election night. Okay, that's a conservative riding provincially. There's no incumbent. Liberals had it for the last 2 terms. So Mr. Trudeau's out there. A lot of the national capital Liberal MPs are out there. And Mr. Trudeau announces a $4.5 billion mental health care package. $4.5 billion. Right. There was a time, and that time wasn't all that long ago, when if a politician was making a $4.5 billion promise, that would be big news. It'd be in the newspaper. Okay. That might be the anchor announcement of an election campaign, the centerpiece of an entire budget, an entire election campaign, a $4.5 billion announcement. Mr. Trudeau did that yesterday. Honest to goodness, there is not much in the way of coverage today. I don't know how impactful front pages are anymore of print newspapers, but this is the print newspaper for the Globe and Mail today. Left Behind is very provocative. Left Behind. So it goes with Afghanistan. Okay. Then below the fold, shock economic contraction. So the GDP report that was out yesterday, surprisingly weak. Second story. And third is Canada wins first women's world title since 2002. Gold medal for the Canadian women in the Women's World Hockey Championship. So I was curious, where is this in the newspaper today? Open the newspaper. Racism, transphobia besets Greens. Okay. Trudeau backs Liberal candidate accused of inappropriate behavior. That's on page 3. In era of social media and COVID, campaigns face evolving security challenges. AFN releases key priorities for next government. Tory leader says he respects decision of Ryerson University to change his name. Toronto District School Board data show rapid reading growth in black students. Ontario races to refine vaccine pass policy. Liberal candidate faces lawsuit over mask business. And then you're into the opinion section. In other words, a $4.5 billion mental health package doesn't even make the newspaper. There is a story online. Afghanistan is their top story, followed by the economy, and the women win gold at the Worlds. Mental health announcement, $4.5 billion. It's nothing in print in my Ottawa Citizen this morning on that either. That's incredible to me. Oh, yeah, the story's in there about Trudeau allowing that Liberal to run in this election, despite sexual harassment allegations that go back years. His candidate in Kitchener Centre. Another blow to the feminist credentials of this so-called feminist prime minister. So what do? You're 17 days in. At best, you're tied in the polls. They're not even reporting on your multi-billion-dollar announcements in the media anymore. You have to go negative now, I guess. What's left? Campaign event yesterday. Where was that yesterday? Sudbury. Okay. Sudbury. Okay. The anti-vaxxers have been following him around. Okay. So Mr. Trudeau, some people predicted he was going to do this. You have to tie the anti-vaxxers who are following Trudeau around, you have to link them to Aaron O'Toole. Aaron O'Toole isn't on your side. He's with these wingnuts. He's just like them. And I guess he has to do that now because not much else is working for the Liberal campaign so far. Let's roll tape on that, David. What? Sudbury, Ontario, yesterday.
Everyone needs to get vaccinated, and those people are putting us all at risk.
Those people.
And Aaron O'Toole is siding with them?
He is?
Instead of with Canadians who did their part and stepped up? He's talking about personal choice. What about my choice to keep my kids safe? So shame on you, Aaron O'Toole.
Shame.
You need to condemn those people. You need to correct them.
He did. He did condemn those people. What is he talking about? Anyway, outrageous, right? Blatant falsehoods. But we'll get into it all. We're going to score our political fix this morning after the 9:30 news. Carl Belanger, Tim Powers on the show this morning. Halfway point of this campaign, that's where we are. If you're even thinking of voting for Aaron O'Toole and the Conservatives, you're no better than those anti-vaxxer weirdos. Don Martin, required reading today, says the only reason that these protesters can get so close to Trudeau is because the campaign lets them that close to Trudeau. Like they're his props now. They're using these protesters as props now, which is something I didn't really think about. But Don also speculates that there could be maybe something big in this platform today, like basic income. Ooh, I'd like to see the details on that if that is true. Trudeau in Toronto, Singh in Montreal, O'Toole is back at the Western Bunker in Ottawa. We're going to talk about agriculture today, agri-economy, and what our farmers need from these political leaders coming out of this election. Tough times, especially for our Western Canadian farmers. Devastating drought, devastating. But as I said, vaccine passport day today in Ontario. Doug Ford said he wouldn't do it. And now he's doing it. It's going to be a vaccine passport in Ontario. Brian Lilly with the scoop for the Sun. News broke while most of us were asleep. Brian never sleeps. This is what it says in his report, quoting here. I've known Brian for 20 years. I've never seen him sleep. Beginning September 22nd, Lilly reports proof of vaccination will be needed for restaurants, bars, gyms, and other indoor settings where masks cannot be worn for the duration of the visit. For the first month, proof of vaccination will be the receipt issued when getting vaccinated or downloaded from the government website. Another piece of government identification, such as a driver's license, will be required. The second step will involve the introduction of an app where both the vaccine receipt and government ID details will be uploaded. People with the app will show a screen proving vaccination status. A government source said officials hope for the app to be ready mid to late October. But your paper copy, you better hang on to that. You're going to need that in about 3 weeks from now. News conference this afternoon. See, that's why you don't want to wander away from City News today. During the talkback hour, this is the issue I want to get into. Doug Ford said he would never do this. He has been under intense pressure from all kinds. Health officials, business leaders, opposition politicians. He said he would never do it. He apparently vetoed the first plan. They've come up with this new plan, and this is the plan. all to be revealed. 1 o'clock. So during the talkback hour between 10 and 11, since this is coming into force in 3 weeks, I want to get your opinion on this. Are you for or against this vaccine passport for Ontario? A monumental flip-flop reversal about face for Doug Ford. Maybe you think it's unforgivable that he's doing this, or maybe you think it's never too late to do the right thing, and this is the right thing to do. We'll do it rapid poll style, talk back hour, hottest hour of talk radio in town. Your calls, your opinions. Let Doug Ford know what you think on his vaccine passport decision flip-flop. At 750-1310, this is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's such a beautiful field because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manotick, the Manotick Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. And it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer or some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor. And I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out of our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News. 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're turning our attention now to an industry that, in my own opinion, isn't getting much attention so far in the federal election campaign, and that's Canadian agriculture. Keith Curry is director of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, but he's actually in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island this morning, and he joins us here on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
And how would you describe the level of interest from our political leaders so far in the issue facing Canada's agri-economy and our farmers, sir?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, it's kind of the same old. Typically, agriculture doesn't get a lot of attention, the second part of that is it's kind of disappointing for a couple of reasons. Agriculture is an industry that's coast to coast to coast, and it's right across this country. 1 in 8 people work in the industry. It's massive in Ontario, where there's some 860,000 jobs involved in the agri-food industry. It's pushing the heck out of $50 billion of gross domestic product every year. And, it's a place that can be invested in to really help drive the economy. And so, we'd like to have those kind of conversations during the election campaign on how we can really, especially coming out of COVID, how we can help to really start to stimulate the economy going forward. And I think that's something that, we'd like to see maybe more prevalent as we go forward.
What are the big issues facing Canada's agri-economy right now?
Well, there's a multitude of issues. As you know, certainly environment is always seems to be a key subject during election times, and of course at the front of that is climate change. And, agriculture would really like to see the government partner with us as we go forward. Outside of the Crown, we are the largest landholder, in the country, in the province of Ontario and in the country. And we have opportunities on environmental issues. I mean, certainly with carbon sequestration, that's what we do. We grow plants. But we don't do environmental things in isolation. So for sequestering carbon, it also, starts with the base of our soil. We improve soil health and retain nutrients and do all kinds of other benefits for society. So, let's partner with the farmers and ranchers in this country and see how we can drive that initiative forward. If you look at what's happening in Northern Ontario right now and across the West, it's a terrible, terrible drought, and our producers are suffering great. And, the recognition of that through better programming to help offset what Mother Nature throws at us is also something that, is first and foremost on our minds and how we go forward on the next policy framework.
Okay. Speaking of environmental policy, I'm glad you went right to that. There is the so-called price on pollution right now, the Trudeau government's carbon tax. None of the parties are saying we won't have a carbon tax. Even the Conservatives now have embraced their own version of a carbon tax. How does that impact agriculture in Canada? What are you hearing from farmers about the impact of a carbon tax?
Well, it certainly is impacting us, and I think people need to understand that we're not opposed to doing our part, to paying our fair share of what needs to be done here. But we have no way of recouping a cost when a carbon tax is put on us. All the other industries and businesses out there, if there's a carbon tax imposed, you're paying more for their product. The consumer is paying more for the product. As farmers, we're price takers. We don't get to set that price, so we have to absorb that cost. We also operate machinery that we don't have an electric option or even a hydrogen option, for example. We try and minimize the amount of trips over a field. If I could put seeds in the ground without even going on the field, I would go for that option because that's better for my bottom line. But we have to work with the equipment we have, and right now we don't have opportunities to buy electric vehicles, for example. I think the opportunities for agriculture, the closest opportunities in that regard would be more towards autonomous vehicles, just because we won't be, driverless vehicles don't have cabs, don't use air conditioning, would use less fuel that way. But penalizing us for stuff that we have no control over. We have livestock buildings that require heat in the wintertime. We're a northern climate. If our chicken and hog producers don't have heat in their barns, their animals die. We have no control over that, so we're paying a huge carbon tax with no way of recouping those costs through the consumer. So it's about, again, having that conversation on how we go forward and looking at how we really, as I said earlier, partner with us to find those solutions to go forward to really do our part in fighting climate change.
Okay. Sticking with the environmental theme here, you mentioned the drought in Western Canada, which I don't think is really getting much play in Central Canada. I don't know about Atlantic Canada, but it's terrible from what we hear. And as I said, we don't hear much about it. How bad is it?
It's bad in certain regions across the prairies, and let's not forget about Northern Ontario as well. Our friends in Northern Ontario are experiencing the same level of drought, and it's bad. The pastures are dried up, water has dried up in a lot of areas. Cattle are going to market because there's no feed available. The Canadian Federation of Agriculture actually has an initiative called Hay West, where we're finding farmers in Eastern Canada who have extra hay. We're getting it loaded up on trains and trucks and sending it to the West to help out. And if any of your listeners are interested in helping with some donations to pay for the transportation costs, we'd certainly love to hear from them as well. So, but it's bad, and farmers, in those regions are watching a lifetime worth of equity disappear in a matter of months, and it's very stressful on everybody. The mental health issues that are happening because of that are incredible, and it's not fun for those farmers and ranchers in those regions.
Yeah, I remember the original Hay West originated in Eastern Ontario, in Navan, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
With a friend of mine,
Yes,
Wyatt McWilliams, spearheaded that effort. So got quite familiar with that. Shame that has to happen again.
Wyatt was a real pioneer there.
He was. He was.
And he's still getting calls about this one.
I'm sure he is. He probably started making the phone calls, if I know Wyatt.
Yep.
I want to ask you about labor, and in particular importing labor, farm workers, which is a big thing, especially in Ontario agriculture. What it was like this year, dealing with COVID again, with imported labor, farm labor. What was that like this year, in your opinion?
Well, certainly,
challenging.
Certainly. Yeah, 2020 was an extremely challenging year because of COVID and, getting access to temporary foreign workers and seasonal ag workers. In Ontario brings in roughly 20,000-ish workers on an annual basis to help with agriculture. We didn't get quite those numbers the last couple of years, but certainly 2021, based on the experience we had in 2020, was easier, but still there was a lot of extra financial requirements put on our employers, our farmers. Health Canada, Service Canada, the Ontario government have put more stringent steps in place to make sure that we really guarantee as much as possible the safety of the workers in their housing and in their workplace. And so it's gone okay. We are still going to be looking at this going forward. I don't think we're going to be out of the woods in 2022 with respect to COVID and where it's at. So we'll have to continue to look back on this year and how can we improve on this year. But certainly we need these workers. Across Canada we're short some 18,000 on-farm jobs as it is. Without this labor coming in, there would be a lot less harvest going on in our food products. So it's a vital part of what we require here to get food onto the consumer's table. And so we'll continue to strive for, working with the government to strive for those better stringent measures to keep everybody safe, including the domestic workers and the employers as well.
Okay. Very quickly, I want to talk about supply management. None of the main party leaders are promising really to do anything with supply management, but every time that a big trade deal has been signed in the past, the market opens up a little bit on the supply managed side of agriculture, and there's supposed to be compensation that flows to the farmer for increased foreign access to the domestic market for those industries. Has the compensation been fair, in your opinion, sir? What do you think? What are you hearing?
Well, I think, if you're a producer in a supply managed commodity, I think what you'd sooner have rather than get compensation is to maintain the level of market protection that you have. Don't give any more away. And I think most of the parties, if not all of them, have come out and said that they're going to protect supply management. It's easier said than done. I mean, I understand that anytime you're negotiating a trade deal with another country, there's give and take, and somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. But, compensating a farmer for a loss of a market might seem like a good thing, but the reality is that market is then gone. And there's a lack of opportunity to sell into that market if you're a producer here. So the more we can protect the supply and managed commodities here from trade losses, then that would mean that the government doesn't have to put out money to compensate for that loss. And I think that would be the best road for everybody. And I think to this point, the leaders have committed to protecting supply management. So we just have to hold their feet to the fire going forward.
Okay. A great pleasure. Enjoy the island, sir. Thank you so much for this morning.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me. Anytime, happy to come on and talk about agriculture.
It's Keith Curry, Director, Ontario Federation of Agriculture.
And the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, September 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 17 degrees. In Smith Falls, 16. And here's what's making news right now. Federal Liberal leader will be unveiling his party platform about a half an hour from now. Reporters currently in lockup. We are learning details of that plan through them. Our Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney will have that for you throughout the day. Justin Trudeau will outline that plan at an appearance in Toronto this morning, about a half an hour from now at 10 o'clock. Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole again at his campaign base, the Weston in Ottawa, making an announcement this morning, and the NDP's Jagmeet Singh is in Quebec today, an announcement to start his day concerning housing in Montreal. Marching orders from the public and Catholic school boards for students and staff has now been released. Mask wearing from kindergarten up. And all staff and volunteers at schools must be vaccinated at the public board by the end of this month. Ontario is set to announce a highly anticipated COVID-19 vaccine certification system today. Premier Doug Ford, Health Minister Christine Elliott, and Dr. Kieran Moore, the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, making that announcement expected at 1 o'clock this afternoon. City News Time, 9:34. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
strong voice.
Strong opinions.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's time to score your political fix with Tim Powers, Summa Strategies. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good today. Thank you. Carl Belanger, Traxion Strategies. Good morning, Carl.
Good morning, guys.
Everything's good?
Everything's great.
Wonderful. This election campaign, Carl, is almost half over. 17 days in, 19 days to go. Some polls say it's a tie. Some say it's a teeny-weeny, itsy-bitsy lead for the Liberals.
I thought you were going to say bikini there, Rob. Come on, you should have gone the whole way. The old rhyme.
Aaron O'Toole in a bikini, no thank you. Some have a small lead for the Conservatives, maybe a big lead for the Conservatives. Question for Carl Belanger. Why is it even close? Why aren't the Liberals on cruise control to their much-coveted majority government? Carl Belanger.
Well, because it's one thing to call a snap election. It's another thing to call a snap election about nothing. And this is what's happening. The Liberals have no clear narratives. They go in this election in a mode that is against the Conservatives. They're accusing them of being anti-vax. They're accusing them of sending protesters. They're accusing them of this. They're accusing them of that. But they're not laying out a vision. They're not laying out proposals. They don't have a clear narrative about why this election was necessary to lead the country in the post-pandemic recovery era. We don't hear from them about that, and I think that's a major flaw in the Liberal strategy.
Well, they're getting around to it. They're going to do that today, Carl.
Apparently, halfway in.
Yeah.
So perhaps it will work for them. Who knows? But right now, if you're asking me why is it that they're not cruising right now, it's because of what I just said. Okay. And let's not forget that the lead the Liberals had going into this campaign was not as wide as people thought, in terms of the popular vote. Trudeau did not have a lead like Andrew Furry had when he called the election in Newfoundland. Tim will relate to that. I mean, Furry was 60% of voting intentions going in. Trudeau doesn't have that cushion, and so if this campaign goes south, he's in trouble.
Yes, you could say the same thing in Nova Scotia, right? Liberals had a big lead there, too, going into the election.
It's about time, Rob, that Atlantic Canada got recognized for its forward political trends, right? But, what this reminds me a lot, too, of is 2004, and Carl will remember that as well, where, Mr. Martin had this invincible juggernaut. They basically just had to show up, and they were going to win. Now, they did win a minority in the end, but it wasn't what they were looking for. There was a bit of hubris at play then, and there's a bit of hubris at play now. Look, I don't think either Carl or I will sit here and say the Liberals are done. I still think they are favored to win. I still think they can win today. Based on all the polls, they would get the most seats. But, credit to Mr. O'Toole and Mr. Singh and others for making this a competitive game right now with no clear ballot question as we go with, what did you say, 18 days left or something?
19, yeah, 19. Okay, so let's turn to these angry protesters. What do you think, Carl, of this idea that the angrier they are, the meaner they are, the more profane they are, the louder they are, it actually helps Trudeau? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, there is a theory that goes along those lines, that he's playing the victim card here. He's the victim of these mean people and therefore deserve people's support. That would be true in as much as, most people wanted to make it a referendum against the anti-vaxxers and the anti-health safety measures. There's already a party supporting those. It's Maxime Bernier's People's Party, and they're at the 3, 4, 5% in the polls. So I don't think that's a winning strategy because it gets them off their main message. They're fighting with anti-vaxxers. They're fighting with the marginals. That's not really interesting for most of us. And I think that's the flaw. And don't get me wrong. I mean, they're making a political decision to all these rallies outside, to all these rallies on public land, so that they can't control the crowd and they can't control the protesters going in. That's a choice they're making. They don't need to go about it this way, but that's what they're doing. So they must think it's helping them.
Okay. Tim? Are these protesters helping Trudeau, do you think?
Well, that's the story they're trying to tell, right? And they're trying to create it as a further wedge between their position on vaccinations, the mandatory vaccinations, and a fabricated one they're trying to create for the Conservatives. But I think it's pretty disappointing. It's not just Justin Trudeau who's doing this. Maxime Bernier, all of these people playing off people's anxiety is just making a already Tinder keg-like situation more dangerous. And I'm sit here, Rob, thinking of Michael Wernick. You'll remember him, the clerk of the Privy Council, going back to the SNC Lavland scandal, and he said we got to be worried about the threat of violence. It's real and it's serious. And I think we're seeing that, and we've got to be responsible here.
Yeah, but Don Martin in his piece speculates. The reason that you're not getting this close. I'd like to know what you think in your experience. You're not getting this close to Trudeau unless the campaign wants them this close to this. That's right. They're props at this point. He wants them. He wants them within earshot. He wants the crowd to be able to hear these wingnuts and. That it's kind of, they've embraced it more or less. What did I hear? Yeah, Carl? Yeah.
I think so, because if they didn't want them, you'd go inside.
You go inside, or like the Canada event yesterday, they were in a fenced backyard. There were no.
That's right. I mean, it's a choice you're making. I think Justin Trudeau needs an enemy, and he's trying to link that enemy with Erin O'Toole, and some of it, to be fair, some Conservative workers were showing up to these events, so I think it's fair to link those, but I think it's vastly not Conservative supporters who are showing up, because in a sense, on a lot of the measures that were put in place, including the help for people, including the different safety measures that were put in place, the Conservatives were on side. They voted for them in Parliament. So the positions between the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party is not that much different, even though Justin Trudeau and his strategists are trying to create a huge wedge between these two parties on this issue.
Okay, let's listen to the tape from yesterday in Sudbury. Roll tape, David.
Everyone needs to get vaccinated, and those people are putting us all at risk. And Erin O'Toole is siding with them instead of with Canadians who did their part and stepped up. He's talking about personal choice. What about my choice to keep my kids safe? So shame on you, Erin O'Toole.
Shame on you.
You need to condemn those people. You need to correct them.
Okay. So Erin O'Toole is doing a thing from the Westin Hotel bunker today at 11 o'clock. What would you do if you were Erin O'Toole? Would you respond to that? Would you say denounce them again? I mean, how would you handle that, Tim?
Well, I think he's going to get the question. I would wait. I think I would do two things. I would probably use a line in my prepared remarks to not go after Justin Trudeau. I don't think he should do that, but to say, look, it's important that people behave appropriately during campaigns, and this sort of protesting is not acceptable. And then I would, in his remarks, point out that, look, he's been saying that in his answers to questions that he's been saying this consistently. I think there's something ugly and not helpful for O'Toole or Trudeau to go back and forth on this. And I think Trudeau, given the disdain that is out there for him now, that perhaps has come on faster than he anticipated, if he goes too hard on this, it could backfire. I think the same is true for O'Toole if he gets too political about it.
Okay. We'll stop here. Then we'll pick Carl's brain on the race in Quebec. Mr. Singh is in Quebec right now in Montreal. This is the Rob Snow Show, your political fix on City News.
Ottawa Markets was created by the City of Ottawa to help rejuvenate the outdoor markets program in Byward and Wellington West, where we have the Parkdale Market. And so we set to work on bringing in the right team with the right experience and reaching out to local vendors and local farmers, because we knew when we did a survey of our customers that was the one thing that was really important to them, both at Byward and in Parkdale, is to start bringing back that local product. And that's what you can see behind us here at the York Street Farmers Market. We put in place a Farmers First policy, which means that we will deal with farmers from the region first. And we're going to give them priority in terms of placement. They're going to have reduced fees in coming to the market. We've also made it free for any farm that's been in operation for under 2 years. The market also put in place a BIPOC initiative, which is a Black, Indigenous, and Peoples of Color initiative, which provides grants and support opportunities for folks from those communities to come on out to the market to reduce systemic barriers that have existed. As a farmer's market, we can have a variety of vendors here, from an artisan to a microprocessor who's taking local ingredients and putting them into a product in a kitchen and selling that, to breweries and distilleries this year, which were changes that the province put in place, which allowed us to bring in a few of those vendors as well, which I think is a nice surprise for people sometimes at 9 in the morning after a pandemic, but it's been going really well, and you know, some of the breweries have been pretty appreciative, because for them, whether it just be doing delivery or curbside pickup, it gives them an opportunity to come back out and talk with their customer and talk about, you know, what makes their product so special. Throughout the market, the health and safety protocols that you're going to see, masks are still required. That is obviously the case, and you'll see a number of signs noting that around the area. We've got a number of hand sanitizer units, I call them droids, throughout the area that you can sort of just grab a pump or a squeeze wherever you go. But what we've also had to do is reduce the number of vendor spaces we have in the market by 50%. This ensures that we can guarantee that our vendors are going to have that distance, that we can, you know, have a little bit better flow around the market. But what we also did was, as I said, we created the York Street Farmers Market, which is just microprocessors and local producers only, and that's on Saturdays. In Parkdale, we launched the night market, which is bringing a lot of the same content, but in the evening, and residents are sort of spilling out into the park. So we're looking at what we're doing as trying to support, create, and enhance public space for the residents of the city. It's been great, you know, the community, which is what this market is here for, and then as tourism comes back, obviously we'll welcome all visitors. But the response has been really great. The communities come on out, they're speaking with their wallets and their dollars, which obviously at the end of the day, we want a great experience, but it needs to be a valuable economic opportunity for the vendors who are coming out.
Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Jagmeet Singh, NDP leader, getting us going with coverage of the leaders this morning. He's in Montreal.
Should be towards helping us fight the housing crisis. Every bit of federal land that we can use should be invested in, or we should be investing in creating homes that are affordable within people's budgets. For me, the choice is clear. If I've got a choice between helping a rich developer build a stadium or using federal land to invest in fighting the housing crisis, I'm choosing people and fighting the housing crisis every time. And that's our choice. That's what New Democrats do.
Okay, so he's in Montreal. Aaron O'Toole, as I mentioned, back at the Westin in Ottawa. Toronto is Trudeau land today. They're having a lockup today for the Liberal platform. Do you read anything into that? Carl Belanger, Tim Powers, our panelist today for Your Political Fix. Carl with Traxion. Tim is with Suma. You read anything into that, Carl? Lockup?
Yeah, I don't miss those.
Lockup? I don't know. Okay, maybe it means there's something big, something potentially market moving. I don't know. Maybe they should wait until 4:00 to make the announcement.
Yeah, somehow I doubt it.
Okay, Liberal platform again being released at some point today. Carl, what's your sense of things? How things are going in Quebec? Who's winning and who's losing in Quebec?
Well, there's not a lot going on in Quebec right now. Okay. The polls have been moving elsewhere in the country, in Ontario, in British Columbia, mostly, a bit in the prairies as well. But in Quebec, everything is pretty flat. Everything is pretty stable, and part of that is because it's kind of boring. Like, the leaders don't come to Quebec very often. You have Yves-François Blanchet and the Bloc who are basically campaigning alone. They're shooting in empty nets. People are not paying that much attention. Even the Bloc, I was expecting them to go hard on identity issues, on religious symbols, on language. Their slogan is simple. It's called Québécois. You see them on their signs. But it's been a quiet start of a campaign for the Bloc. Now, that could shift this week with the first of the leaders' debate. That's happening Thursday on TVA with the 4 main party leaders. And last time around, that's when Yves-François Blanchet shone. That's when people discovered him. That's when everything started to shift in Quebec, which led to the Liberals losing their majority government they were coveting again, and the rise and the return of the Bloc Québécois, and the end of Andrew Scheer's dream of becoming Prime Minister. That all started with the TVA debate, which is the first one again this year.
Okay. Tim, any thoughts on the race in Quebec? Tim?
Well, Rob, you first of all, you missed the obvious question. Don't you know that Carl is a bit of a star softball player?
I did not know that, no.
Yeah, so Mr. Singh not getting the Expos back in the game has got to be crushing Carl. I mean, I'm looking
Oh, really? Okay, all right.
I'm looking for
I wasn't. Is that what he was talking about money for? I wasn't sure if he was talking about the Expos or the Nordiques, maybe.
No. Apparently there's a movement to try and bring the Expos back. I mean, I think Carl could say better, but it seems to happen like every year. Denny Cordier somehow will pop up with a UP and an Expos hat at any moment.
Right, yeah,
but,
just what we need, another Blue Monday. Yeah, okay, right.
Oh, God, Rob, you're dating us here. Anyway, Rick Monday aside and that awful home run, I think Carl's bang on Quebec. It still seems to be the one consistent in an election race where all the predictable pregame stuff is not panned out. I know for Mr. O'Toole, he's looking to see if he can create some interest in Quebec. I mean, the Conservatives want to hold what they have there and maybe pick up 1 or 2 seats. If Mr. O'Toole's dream of unseating Mr. Trudeau is going to become real, he at least needs to hold what he has in Quebec, so he needs to perform well, as does the Prime Minister.
I wonder when Legault made the traditional list of demands, don't come to me complaining about Bill 21. When it comes to healthcare, just give me the money and then buzz off. And Aaron O'Toole gets it, and Trudeau and Singh don't. I wonder if that helps O'Toole, just given the popularity of Legault. What do you think, Carl?
Well, certainly it was welcomed by Conservatives. It was a quiet endorsement, but an endorsement nevertheless. When you heard Legault speak about the Conservatives in those terms, I mean, the CAQ coalition is very solid still, and they're much behind Legault, and then especially in rural areas where the Conservatives hope to make gains at the expense of the Bloc, that was a strong endorsement, the best he could have hoped from Legault. So yes, I think it's helping Aaron O'Toole, but he needs to show up at the debate, because if he doesn't show up, if he doesn't perform well, then the Conservatives will gain about the same number of seats that they had last time around 10 seats, and that's not good enough for them if they hope to unseat Trudeau.
Okay. On NDP supporters, the soft NDP support eventually drifting the Liberals' way. Maybe 2 weeks to go, it dawns on the Progressives, look, we've got to stop O'Toole. We can't have those dastardly Conservatives in power again. There'll be soldiers in the streets and soldiers in the streets with guns. We did not make this up. Could that happen again? What's your feeling? Carl, take that one, Carl, and then we'll get to Tim.
It can always happen. Of course. Yeah. But there's something that's going on here that could be very interesting. That Jagmeet Singh has been and is still the most popular leader amongst the party leaders. His favorability ratings have been going up during this campaign, and in that sense, people don't feel that they need to switch their votes to stop O'Toole, because O'Toole's popularity level has also been rising. O'Toole has been more optimistic. He's been more sunny ways than Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is the negative one on the campaign trail right now. You just heard the clip a few minutes ago. So I think there's a lot to say about campaigning with optimism. Certainly Jagmeet Singh is doing that, Aaron O'Toole is doing that, and they're the two that are kind of having some kind of momentum. So unless that changes, I don't see a stampede of NDP voters unless somehow the Liberals are able to really paint Aaron O'Toole as the scarecrow they're trying to paint.
Right, the boogeyman. He's just like the last two guys. Tim, what do you think, Tim?
Well, I think Cheryl Gallant has been sent to vacation in the deepest of Cape Breton Island, Rob. Your relatives have been employed.
Well, it must be up north, probably up north then. Okay.
Sheet Harbor, maybe. Sheet Harbor.
Neat Cove.
Carl's right on the tone, though, and I think that's a major difference. So if you're just tuning in and you've seen the last two Conservative leaders, Mr. Harper and Mr. Scheer, and you see this Aaron O'Toole, you're probably wondering, is he really, in fact, from the Conservative Party? I think it's paying dividends right now, and Mr. Trudeau is not used to being in the cranky curmudgeon-y role, and I think so far he hasn't looked like he's wanted this campaign. Again, I'll throw out the caveat. They're still the favorites to win, but you do wonder what sort of course correction they're going to need to do that, because I don't think they can necessarily count on either Mr. Singh or Mr. O'Toole running out of steam this time. I think Mr. O'Toole's better prepared than Mr. Scheer, and Mr. Singh already has a campaign under his belt, and the NDP have been consistent on a slow but, incremental upward track, so they haven't fallen off yet.
So, Tim, if you're Aaron O'Toole, I mean, the PPC, 3%, some polls have them higher than that, but do you even bother making the same kind of pitch to PPC supporters? Are they too far gone? Vote for me to stop Trudeau. Max is not going to be the prime minister. Why are you wasting your vote?
You do that and you're dead. You play right into the Liberals' hands.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think entirely. I mean, my goodness, if you look at Max Bernier's Twitter feed, I mean, it's shocking. Again, you can have partisan differences with a leader, but he's out calling the Prime Minister of Canada. And again, you don't have to like him. You don't call him a psychopath. And you want to go, and as Max Bernier did, you don't want to go after those voters. They, they either sit on their hands, but if you start making that pitch,
you don't even make the pitch. Don't even make the case. Okay, I got you. Okay. Agree with that, Carl? Yeah?
Yes, certainly directly, but I think there could be an appeal from Aaron O'Toole towards the end of the campaign for all those who want change, all those who want a different government, right? And then that message can be heard by some PPC voters, but if you go after them directly, well, we've seen what happened when you're trying to protect your right flank on the Conservative side. You dismiss the bigger pool of voters, which is the Liberal, the red-blue switchers. You don't want to dismiss those. That's the prize. The PPC on the margin is not what you need to worry about.
In my opening remarks today, I pointed out Justin Trudeau goes to Canada yesterday, which is going to be a local race to watch, and he makes this big announcement on mental health care, $4.5 billion. There's not even a story in the print edition of the Globe and Mail about it today. He did no coverage. No coverage. Instead, it's overshadowed by the stories about protesters and this defense of his candidate, the running of this candidate in Kitchener Centre, accused of sexual harassment. Not a good day, really. Another bad day for that campaign, if you ask me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, look, they just haven't found their mojo. I keep hearing their spin, as Carl probably does. Oh, look, we're not worried. Nobody's turning in till after Labor Day. We've got this. They're telling their own people, and maybe that's just false bravado on their part, and they're really terrified. But if they're going to do a course correction or pick up their game, now's the time, starting today, going into that debate tonight. Carl rightly pointed out its importance, launching into the debates next week. They really want to win. They've got to start demonstrating to their supporters and Canadians who are inclined to vote for them that they deserve to win.
Last word, Carl Belanger.
I mean, the timing of the release of the platform is interesting because they could double up on whatever other parties have done so far. I'm not sure that's what they're doing, and I think this platform will not have a major impact. It's not the reset button that Liberals could hope for, and you're right, they're dogged by all kinds of other stories. They're stimping on their message, and the message of this election is not do you dislike anti-vaxxers, and it's certainly not should we defend candidates who have sexual harassment allegations against them. When your prime minister says he's a feminist and you are tolerance zero about these things, and this guy is running on your slate, you have a problem.
Hey, great conversation this morning. Thank you so much. Very satisfying.
Thank you, Rob.
We're glad you're happy. You're like the Francois Legault of Cape Breton, so we got to keep you happy.
À la prochaine. Bye-bye. Tim Powers, Carl Belanger. That's your Political Fix. Talkback hour coming up after the 10 o'clock news. Rapid poll style, old school. Call-in radio. Give me a shout right now because it's Vaccine Passport Day in Ontario. Are you for or against vaccine passports. Doug Ford's going to make the announcement 1 o'clock this afternoon. You'll hear it on City News.
The Rock.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smith Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, September 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 17 degrees, 16 in Smith Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau begins his day announcing the party platform in Toronto. That's expected shortly. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole remains in Ottawa this morning with an announcement from the Weston. As for the NDP, 500,000 affordable housing units across Canada. According to the party, that's the number needed right now. Party leader says $10 billion would be the initial amount his party would pledge to start getting the homes built. Jagmeet Singh, speaking in Montreal, says one way to help pay for the affordable homes is through a taxation incentive.
One of the tools that we have is a Gst Waiver. If a builder meets strict criteria of affordability, we're prepared to waive the GST on that project. And for these large projects, that's a significant amount, and that could be a very powerful tool to persuade or incentivize the construction of affordable homes.
Now, Singh also says the federal government under his leadership would work with partners to develop the full strategy. City News Time 10:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Sun and cloud today with a high near 24 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy and down to 12. Feel on the cool side, but 12 is the average low. And tomorrow, sun and cloud, the high near 20. For today, the high near 24.
And right now in Ottawa, 17 degrees. In Smith Falls, it's 16. Ontario is set to announce a highly anticipated COVID-19 vaccine certification program this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Premier Doug Ford, Health Minister Christine Elliott, and Dr. Kieran Moore, the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Ontario, will be together making that announcement. Ottawa police have charged a 49-year-old woman from Gatineau with falsely working as a nurse. Bridget Cleroux arrested on charges of working in a medical and dental clinic in the East End. Among her duties, administer medication, including injections, into patients. She is facing 5 charges in Ottawa. Police allege she used various aliases and identities. We do have her picture up right now at ottawa.citynews.ca. If you have any information about this person, you're asked to contact Ottawa Police. More than 1 million customers are still without electricity 3 days after Hurricane Ida swept over Louisiana and Mississippi.
Local officials are urging those who've evacuated not to come back until they're told.
If you're in a safe place with water and power, that's probably the best place for you to be.
More than 5,000 National Guard members are on the ground to help with the search for stranded residents. Heavy machinery clearing the streets. Entire communities cut off with roads impassable and homes destroyed. Elizabeth Schulze, ABC News, New Orleans.
And a new report from the United Nations Weather Agency finds the world is getting several times more weather disasters than it did in the 1970s. In that decade, the world average was 711 weather disasters a year, but from 2000 to 2009, that number increased to 3,536 a year, or nearly 10 every day. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Are you for or against the vaccine passport coming to Ontario? We're going to do a rapid poll style. I want to take as many calls as I can fit in. Okay. During the course of the hour, I'm going to try and stay out of it. Okay. Not take too much of your time. You just heard the phone number, 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Okay. I love to talk. It's always a challenge for me not to interject and offer an opinion. I'm sure you're well aware of this. I usually have a lot to say. But I want to hear from you. This is why we do the Talk Back Hour. I want to hear from you, okay? You call now. I'll put you right on the air. Brian Lilly has the scoop in the Sun this morning. The news broke in the middle of the night. I'm quoting here from Lilly in the Sun. Quote, beginning September 22nd, proof of vaccination will be needed for restaurants, bars, gyms, and other indoor settings where masks cannot be worn for the duration of the visit. Beginning September 22nd. Okay, 3 weeks from now. For the first month, proof of vaccination will be the receipt issued when getting vaccinated or downloaded from the government website. Another piece of government identification, such as a driver's license, will be required. The second step will involve the introduction of an app, that's Quebec style, of an app where both the vaccine receipt and government ID details will be uploaded. People with the app will simply show a screen proving their vaccination status. A government source said officials hope for the app to be ready mid to late October. Okay, so that's in the paper today. And there you go, and there you have it. We're getting a vaccine passport in Ontario, a vaccine certificate or a proof of vaccination requirement, whatever you want to call it. It's on its way, and it will be the order of things in about 3 weeks from now. And I want to know where you stand on it. Are you for or against this plan? Ladies and gentlemen, September 22nd, the September 22nd vaccine passport comes to Ontario, September 22nd, 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. Let's get right to it here. Let's get right to it. Is it Guy in Manor Park? Guy? Can you hear me, sir?
Oh.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Are you for or against the vaccine passport coming to Ontario?
For it, 100%.
And why is that, sir?
I'm in the tourism industry, and I think that we need this. I think we're falling behind with Quebec and Manitoba. I think we should have a QR code, and I think I was at the Red Black game on Saturday, and I'm looking forward to flashing the QR code so that I can confirm that everyone is double vaccinated, just like me.
And you think it would help your business, sir?
Absolutely.
Really? Okay. And in the tourism industry, in what sense, if you don't mind me asking, sir?
Well, right now, if you look at all the urban centers across the country, all the hotels are under 5% occupancy.
Wow.
Where in the past they were at 90%.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at conferences, we're looking at festivals, I mean, the faster we get the vaccine passport, the faster all these businesses can get rolling again.
Appreciate your call, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes. Up next is Chris in Blackburn Hamlet. Chris, are you for or against the vaccine passport reportedly coming to Ontario, required September 22nd? What's your opinion, for or against?
I am definitely against the vaccine passport.
Okay.
If people want to get vaccinated to protect themselves against the virus, that's a good thing. But as the previous caller said, I was actually at the Red Blacks game too, and people who were vaccinated were milling around with people who are not vaccinated. I doubt that very many of those people were really worried about that situation. So I'm against the passport.
Against the vaccine passport. Thank you. Melanie in Ottawa, are you for or against the vaccine passport?
I am against it.
Okay, and explain why, please, if you don't mind.
I'm not anti-vax by any stretch or anything. I believe in people respecting everyone's choices, but I'm currently pregnant and chose not to get the vaccine specifically because of pregnancy. So I think it's pretty awful for people who have legitimate reasons not to currently get the vaccine, and to kind of segregate that population.
So you think there should be maybe there should be an exemption for someone like you? Maybe if you could get a note from your doctor or something like that, or
I think there's other circumstances that have a legitimate reason not to get the vaccine, whether that be temporarily or because of an illness or something like that. There should be at least be some kind of arrangement for that kind of thing.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Up next, Steve, Ottawa, for or against a vaccine passport? Steve.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. What do you think?
Hey, first time caller.
Appreciate it very much, sir. Thank you so much.
I waited a long time to call until something was important to me enough, and I feel this is the one.
All right.
So I'll start off. Personally, I'm against it.
Okay.
And I'll let you know I'm just not interested in ever scanning in anywhere I go or going to that extent. I don't think
you don't want the government scanning your phone.
I don't, and I actually struggle with walking around with it in my pocket actually at points, but that goes deeper. And if you don't mind, I'll tell you 1 second too. I have another objection. I'm actually a small business owner as well. I'm in the restaurant business, and unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable telling you which restaurants because I don't want any flack from it, but it's a little bananas after everything we've gone through the last couple of years. Am I going to hire more staff now in order to accommodate this? Am I or my staff, some of whom are young persons, going to have to deal with irate persons, which does happen now, even with the signing in for the contact tracing. I wouldn't say daily anymore, but weekly for sure. Last night I had a gentleman just irate, not willing to leave his information. And
okay.
As a business owner, that falls on me for some reason, and other guests see it. And, it's a little wild. So again, am I going to take on costs? And secondly, am I now going to have to segregate 20, 25%, whatever you want to call it, of the population who aren't vaccinated and are no longer allowed to come into my business? But am I still going to pay full taxes, full rent, full high wages for everything else? So I don't know how thought out this is. We're
you feel like they've just cut your potential market by 20-25% or whatever.
Sure, they have. And Mr. Ford said it. I think Premier Ford said it right the first time. He's creating a two-tier society here, and I don't know. It's a slippery slope. What's next? There's no talk of if this is permanent or temporary, so we know it's permanent, right? So where do we go from here?
All right,
both
Steve.
Personally and professionally.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the call.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for the call. Yeah. Bye-bye. To Perth. Tom in Perth, you're on City News. Are you for or against a vaccine passport? Oh, there goes Tom. Lost Tom. Let's go to Chris in Brockville. Chris, you're on City News. Are you for or against a vaccine passport? It may be the law of the land by the 22nd of September. What do you think?
I am for it. Should have been done earlier. If you don't want to cross the border, you don't need a passport. If you don't want to drive, then you don't get a driver's license. If you don't want to go into these public places, then don't go. If you want to go, get properly vaccinated and properly have a passport.
All right, Chris, thank you, sir, for your call. From Brockville to Smiths Falls, we're all over Eastern Ontario today. Butch, good morning, Butch.
Yes, good morning. I agree with the last caller.
So you're for a vaccine for the passport then, sir?
Oh, absolutely. I have a
Okay.
granddaughter that takes on life support breathing at nighttime. We've been extra careful to make sure that we did not get any problems with the disease. And also, I feel that it's everybody's choice whether you want to get it or not. But if people that choose not to get it, if they become sick, the healthcare should be on their dime. We shouldn't have to pay for something that is given out for free to help protect your health.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's a stretch too far, don't you think?
No,
but
absolutely not.
somebody, you know, let's say if somebody's not wearing their seatbelt, they get into a car accident. We don't make them pay for the health care that they get at the hospital. Somebody, you know, a smoker gets lung cancer. We don't make them pay for the health care they get at the hospital. I mean, let's go.
There's more issues with this, I believe, than somebody not wearing their seatbelt. I mean, this is a global epidemic where the numbers have shown you're going to get it if you're not careful and if you don't take the proper procedures. If you just flat out do not want it, why should we have to bend over backwards to try to help or protect you when it's being offered to you?
Okay.
And you shouldn't be allowed to go into places if you do not have that passport.
All right. That's the heart of the matter, Butch. Thank you very much, sir, for your call. So there we go. 6 calls in. 3 for and 3 against. Here we go. It's the Talkback Hour doing a rapid poll. There's a 1 o'clock news conference this afternoon. Ford expected to announce vaccine passports effective September 22nd. Your opinions, please, on City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
Back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Rapid poll, are you for or against the vaccine passport? Doug Ford's going to announce a vaccine passport. Will be required to enter certain businesses. We don't know the list of businesses yet, but it will be required, according to reports, as soon as September 22nd. For or against? Anne in Ottawa, your opinion, please. For or against?
I'm 100% for. And the reason is, listen, you people, this is the dumbest hill to die on I ever heard of in my life. It's like, I want the right to get polio if I want. I'm not getting that darn needle. Oh, there's treatment for it, I hear. Some of these explanations are so moronic. But the basic thing is, I don't want to get sick. I want to protect those that are most vulnerable, as I've had both my shots. And the thing is, I want this silliness to stop, where I have to walk around with a mask on all the time I walk into a store. These people are a menace, and they are preventing us from getting on with our lives. Because if we had 85% people vaccinated, or whatever the magic number is, we wouldn't have to continue with this stuff. And because of these people, we can't. And you know what? That's fine. Don't get vaccinated. But the rest of us want to get on with our lives, and we have the right to not have you come into places where we are and have to worry about our mortal lives or endangering those around us.
Okay, thank you so much, Anne, for your call. I appreciate that. So there's a very vigorous defense of the for position. James, Kempville. For or against vaccine passport to be announced today? What do you think, James?
Hey, Rob, first-time caller. And
Appreciate it, James. Appreciate it.
Rob, I'm against it just because, we say the government doesn't belong in the bedroom. I don't think it belongs in our vein.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm against the vaccine. It's just, the income tax was brought in temporarily, and then, here we are today. And I just don't see an end to where the passport could go. So that's my main thing. And it's not saying don't get a vaccine, but there's lots of specialists that have looked at it. But I just don't think that we should go down that road of complete control over what's in our body.
All right, James, thank you. Thank you. Richard Southern, our reporter in Toronto. Vaccine certificate program to be announced later today by Premier Ford is expected to be mandatory for some businesses, including indoor dining and gyms. But sources tell me the list of businesses for which this will be optional is significant. Optional is significant, most included. That's the latest from Richard. The news conference scheduled for 1 o'clock. We'll have it for you, of course, here on City News Ottawa. Jen, Ottawa. Good morning, Jen. You're on City News. Are you for or against the vaccine passport? Jen.
I am against the vaccine passport.
And why is that, ma'am?
I just think that it's a slippery slope in the sense that we're already seeing data out of countries like Israel where they're already requiring boosters to keep their efficiency against the Delta variant. And so I just feel like for the rest of our lives, are we going to have to be getting boosters every 6 months? And are we going to have to prove that we've received these boosters? And I don't like where this could potentially lead. And for that reason, I am against the vaccine passport.
All right. Thank you, Jen. Thank you. 750-1310, 750-1310. Very hot topic here. I want your opinion. Carly in Brockville. Carly, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. For or against vaccine passport?
To say I'm against it would be an understatement. I despise the idea, to be honest.
Despise it? Okay, all right.
Myself, I grew up on a dairy farm. I got a strong immune system. I've got a chance at fighting the COVID-19 if I were to get it. With my understanding, a vaccine is meant to protect your own immune system, correct?
Well, whatever. Whatever the case might be, that's not really the question. The question is, are you for or against a vaccine passport? Now, you haven't even been vaccinated. You haven't been vaccinated, right?
No, I have not.
You have not been vaccinated. Okay.
Just because I've had my doubts about it, but I am against it because it's against our rights. And say I was vaccinated, I can still get it. I can still transfer it to somebody else.
Yeah.
But
the chances, if you're vaccinated, the chances of you ending up in the hospital, the chances of you dying, very remote, sir. Very remote.
Yes, that is
right,
true.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Carly. I get it. I get it, sir. Very opposed. I got it. Okay. We are following. Just so you know, Chrystia Freeland is talking right now. The Liberals are releasing their platform. She looks like she's doing a TED Talk right now.
Half of Canadian children will have access to high-quality care for just $10 a day within 5 years or less.
Yeah, or less.
These deals
Okay,
will
thank
be
you.
great.
So just a little taste of that. According to David Aiken, the Global News parliamentary correspondent, as part of their platform, they plan to overhaul the Canada Health Act to essentially make it a legal requirement that all provinces provide publicly available, equitable access to abortion. So David Aiken writes, for the first time, there will be a law protecting abortion access. And from our parliamentary correspondent, Cormac McSweeney, the Liberal platform includes a total of $78 billion in new spending over the next 5 years, but with new taxes and revenue, the net increase will be $50 billion. Debt to GDP ratio will improve more than expected over that time. Well, how do they know that? StatsCan also thought that the economy was going to grow in the second quarter by 2.5%. Instead, it shrank by 1.1%. Let alone what's going to happen over the next 5 years. But let's not get too off track here. That's the federal scene. We're talking provincial affairs right now, 1 o'clock this afternoon. That's why you have to keep it on City News. You won't miss a thing on City News Ottawa. This is the Rob Snow Show. We're doing a rapid poll. For or against the vaccine passport? Keith Shawville, what's your opinion? For or against?
I'm for, but I've got a lot of reservations. Like in the future, as one of your previous callers mentioned, if boosters are required, we're going to have to get this updated all the time.
Sure.
And it's going to be another, is this going to be on for the rest of our lives?
Even if it is. So what if it is?
Well, it's just going to be another hassle,
another hassle, yeah.
The other thing is, too,
sometimes getting up in the morning for me, Keith, is just a hassle for me to get up in the morning sometimes.
No, I know that, but it's going to be more than that. But
okay.
What I'm also saying is, too, is if you have the AstraZeneca shot, for international travel, it should almost be a national thing rather than each individual province doing it.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody wants to travel, and they're going to say, well, okay, you got your vaccination.
Well, see, to me, this is
then we're not counting you. They should make it carte blanche that you're fully vaccinated, no matter which one you got. I can see them, especially if they're traveling internationally, maybe distinguishing.
Yeah. I mean, the international quote unquote vaccine passport is very important as well. I mean, for example, I had 2 doses of AstraZeneca. My wife had AstraZeneca and Pfizer. David, what did you have? You had 2 doses of Pfizer. So David might be allowed to go to the United States. You'll be allowed to go.
No,
I don't know if I'm going to. You had what?
I had Pfizer and Moderna.
Pfizer and Moderna.
Yeah,
same with me. I had each one of those.
So when are we going to be able to even leave our own country, Keith? Are we trapped in our own country?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it should be a national.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good point.
Recognize individual provincial passports. It should be just maybe one across the country, and that's what I'm worried about. Is the people that were, wanted to get vaccinated quite early and they had to use the AstraZeneca one. Are they being penalized because they used the...
Good point. Okay, thank you. But generally speaking, and with reservations, you're for it, though. Okay, gotcha, Keith. Thank you up in the Pontiac today. Halftime. At halftime, we've taken 11 calls. That's a lot of calls in a half, not even a half an hour of talk radio. And it's 6-5 is the score. Where do you stand on Doug Ford's vaccine passport? Join me after the news here on City News.
News in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, September 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, it's 17 degrees. In Smiths Falls, it's 18. And here's what's making news this hour. Ottawa police have charged a 49-year-old Gatineau woman with impersonating a nurse. This woman worked at a medical and dental clinic in Ottawa's East End, and police believe Bridget Cleroux also used different names and different identities. We do have her picture up at ottawa.citynews.ca. Anyone who has any information on this person should contact Ottawa Police. 656 more cases of COVID in Ontario today. The province says they're reporting another 13 deaths as well. Now, 6 of those are from more than 2 months ago. 22 of these new cases are in Ottawa, 4 in Eastern Ontario. No new cases today in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and due to an adjustment, 1 fewer case in Renfrew. NDP says it would bring in a GST credit for builders to construct affordable housing. Leader Jagmeet Singh said this morning in Montreal that's one way a government under his leadership would begin to counter the 500,000 shortfall of affordable homes in Canada. Singh also says using federal land for affordable housing would be another measure the NDP would take. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau unveiling his party platform in Toronto, $78 billion in new spending over the next 5 years. But Trudeau says that would be reduced through new revenue. Cormac McSweeney will have the very latest on the Liberal platform coming up at 11 o'clock. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
What a news day. The Prime Minister releasing the Liberal platform 17 days into the election campaign. He's doing that right now in Toronto. Go ahead, join that live, if you will, David, please.
In the last 2.5 weeks, I've been traveling across the country. From Markham to Longueuil, from Victoria to Halifax, in the north, out west, and across the prairies. And everywhere I've gone, no matter who I've talked to, there's something I've always found. Hope. Hope in our future. Hope in each other. And the unshakable hope that together we can build a better Canada for everyone. Together, we've come so far. Together, we can go so much further.
And friends, each decision counts. It counts for parents and children at school. It counts for them to know that we're standing up to defend vaccination and to promote vaccination. It counts for patients who are looking for a doctor, who are waiting for surgery. They want to know that we're fighting to maintain our universal public health
We're going to have
service.
more on that throughout the course of the day. Liberal platform being released today, 17 days into the campaign, and with the Liberals behind in most of the polls. So that's happening. Then at 1 o'clock this afternoon, it's news conference day because it's Vaccine Passport Day in Ontario. We'll have reaction to this on our show and on Sam LaPrad's show coming up right after the noon news. It will be required, according to Brian Lilly's reporting in The Sun, for restaurants, bars, gyms, and other indoor settings where masks cannot be worn for the duration of the visit. So hang on to whatever paper copy you have, okay, of your current proof of vaccination, because it sounds as though it's going to be vital, and it's going to take, by the sounds of it, about 6 weeks for the government to come up with an app, okay, for your phone. With I think it's called in Quebec VaxiCode. I think it's called in Quebec VaxiCode launches today. In my own experience, when it comes to high tech and government, it's not always seamless when government tries to develop tech. So the idea that there could be an app ready to go, say 6 weeks from now, we'll have that. Maybe that might be optimistic, but this could be our life in Ontario for the foreseeable future. You want to go out for a meal, you will need to show the host or hostess that you have been fully vaccinated and show a piece of government ID along with it. Here are my vaccine credentials, and here's my driver's license, or here's my vaccine passport, and here's my passport. All right. That proves I am who I say I am. So what do you think about that? It was 6-5 at halftime. Where will we be by 11 o'clock? To the phones in Arnprior. Heather, you're on City News. Are you for or against this idea of a vaccine passport?
I am for a passport, definitely.
All right.
For anyone that says it's too much of a hassle and they may have to get it renewed, we do that with our driver's license. We do it with our health card.
Yeah, that's a hassle too.
Well, but it's necessary.
Yeah, yes.
And
okay.
It depends on how busy you are, I guess, how much of a hassle it is. But I think that for protection for myself and my family, I want a passport. I don't feel safe right now going into a restaurant. I would love to be able to go out and have dinner with friends, but I don't know who's sitting next to me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Heather. Thank you for your call. Greatly appreciated. 750-1310 Rapid Poll. Ed in Ottawa. Good morning, Ed. You're on City News. For or against the vaccine passport?
I'm for it, Rob. Totally for it. So
totally for it.
Rob,
okay.
There's an old saying.
Yep.
You are free to choose, but you are not free from the consequences of your choice. So if you don't want it, don't accept the passport. But it's not bothering anybody to get a passport now. Come on. It's just a piece of paper, or else it's going to be on your phone. Very simple.
All right, Ed. Thank you. 750-1310. When you hear a line become available, that is your cue to call. Sharif, Canada, are you for or against the vaccine passport? Sharif.
Well, I have mixed feelings about it. The word passport was passports, like international. You pass the ports of different nations. Would we call it a passport to be able to have civil liberty in our society? It's a mixed feeling of okay, yes, I'm for it, but at the same time you are going to deliberately take away the freedom of movement for some people. Basically, I'm for it, but it's a choice. If I want it, I get it. Don't force me to have it. Somehow, the system have to be able to differentiate between civil liberty and
So how do you, are you willing to forego going to restaurants, for example, Sharif?
I own a restaurant.
You own a restaurant, okay.
Yeah, it's a dilemma. I want to protect my employees.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't want to piss off my customers.
Right. But maybe your customers would feel they would have peace of mind knowing that everybody in there was fully vaccinated.
Absolutely. But what about the other people who doesn't? Like if you look at your poll, some people are against, some people are with it.
Yes. So, well, yeah. It's
so
it's very divisive.
Which one do you want to eliminate?
Yeah. So you feel like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, Sharif.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to put him down as a no. I put him down as a no, David. 750-1310. We're keeping track of your opinions. Okay. I'm sure somebody in Doug Ford's office is probably listening in. Ron in Barrhaven. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Rob, and congrats. I know it's a little late, but anyway, I'm firmly against it.
Okay.
What are you going to do with the 5 million or so Canadians that have natural immunity, which is greater than any vaccine? What are you going to do with people with MS who can't get the vaccine? Pregnant?
Well, they'll have to get some kind of medical exemption, I would think.
Okay, well, what about us, those of us who had COVID who are immune for the rest of our lives? What about us?
Well, who knows if you're immune for the rest of your life, sir? You don't know if you're immune for the rest of your life. You don't know if you're immune. But you don't know if you're immune for the rest of your life, sir.
2.5 years minimum is what the science is saying. That's the Israeli study. I'm 13 times more protected than someone with a vaccine.
You don't know that. Nobody knows that, sir. Nobody knows that.
Yes, we do. The science is there. This is John Hopkins. This is Israel, Great Britain, Germany. They're all reporting this. So I don't know. Just because you guys don't talk about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Okay. I got you, Ron. You're against it. Okay. All of this stuff has been evolving, sir. This, on masks, it has been evolving. The efficacy of vaccines, where, now we're talking third shots. The effectiveness of the vaccine waning after 6 months. The potential for annual shots. These sorts of things. Okay? I don't know if people can say conclusively that, say, if you've had it, you're immune forever. I don't know if anybody can conclusively say that. You can make that claim. Dr. Ron, Sharon, go ahead. Sharon, are you for or against it, Sharon?
I'm actually for the passport,
okay,
but
all right.
I have a few concerns, I guess you'd say.
Okay, yeah.
First of all, we're developing a provincial patchwork. It should be federal, so that you can use that for travel, so that you can use it interprovincially, that sort of thing. I think it should be temporary in order to protect businesses and protect people going out, but it shouldn't be we're going to keep this forever thing. But I think in terms of giving us our freedom, I'm for it for that reason. I do also have a concern, and this maybe is a small thing, but not everybody has a smartphone. Even now, they don't. And I'm thinking of people who might have like a flip phone. They can't get that app. So should it maybe be in the form of a card or whatever?
Well, that's gonna have to be an option for some people. Yeah,
and
that's
I know
gonna have to be
the
an
reason
option,
is my husband has a flip phone. He doesn't need a smartphone. Are we going to have to?
You know what? My father has a flip phone too. My father he does not have a smartphone. Okay.
And as my husband says, I don't need one.
Yeah, and he has no interest. He has no interest in getting a smartphone.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And there's a lot of people like those. And I know maybe some younger people would say, it's only a couple people. Well, apparently not. Apparently, according to some of the cell phone companies, the flip phone, because of their simplicity, are becoming very popular. Anyway, it was just, like I said, a concern. I think as a temporary measure. And when I say temporary, I don't mean a couple weeks.
Well, maybe it should have a sunset clause. If there has to be legislation involved here, maybe there should be a sunset clause that says it will expire unless we decide to renew it after a year.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I mean, I laugh when I hear people saying, we're giving up all our freedom. Hell, what have we been doing the last 2 years?
Yeah.
We've lost just about every freedom we've ever had, to leave our house, to travel, to be able to choose which business we go into. This is something that could buy us our freedom, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Sharon.
But I don't want it for till the end of time.
Gotcha. Thank you. Look, it's always going to be a battle. It's always been a battle when it comes to COVID-19, when it comes to restrictions, governments making moves with the overriding goal of keeping people safe, limiting the spread of this virus. Lockdowns, people are opposed to lockdowns, still opposed to lockdowns. Mask wearing, mask mandates, still with us. People were opposed to having to wear masks. Some people, a minority, I think, are still opposed to wearing a mask, even after all of this time. Curfews in Quebec had the support of most Quebecers, certainly not all Quebecers. Interprovincial travel restrictions, police on bridges between Ontario and Quebec, police at border crossings in Atlantic Canada, Atlantic bubbles. It was popular. There were still a lot of people who didn't like it. Vaccine mandates. They're talking about that in the federal election campaign. Mandatory vaccinations for some workers comes up every day on the election campaign because the Liberals think they have a winning issue on that. And now, here we go with this one. Made in Ontario. The controversy of the day, of the week. Vaccine passports. After resisting the idea for weeks, if not months, it's got to be months, that we've been talking about this. It's coming to Ontario. It will be made official this afternoon from the Premier. And I want to know where you stand on it in the final quarter of our talkback hour at 750-1310, the vaccine passport in Ontario. Take your calls next. City News.
This hour of the Rob.
Well, we all loved our rock T-shirts growing up, right? It was our badge. Hey, we went to this concert. We knew that band inside out. So we kept doing that and kept promoting that. What's sort of happening now is that audience is dying. I always say the earth is flat. So the 60s rockers are falling off the end of the earth. So you don't see as big a sales anymore because my audience is disappearing. What's sort of helping to promote that history is the kids are buying vinyl. And luckily we have a vinyl shop in the neighborhood here, a record center. So what's happening is I've seen kids come in with their dad. And the dad saying, hey, do you have any Beatles shirts? Do you have any CBGB? Do you have any of this? I said, well, why? He said, well, because my daughter's into it. She's wearing my T-shirt. So slowly it's coming back, right? The kids are, I think, getting fed up with the generic music that's out there. And they want to click into something that, first of all, links them to their parents, something that they thoroughly enjoy now, and maybe they're passing it on to their grandkids. Pandemic has been a couple of things, definitely hard on everybody. So much messaging that's out there that people don't understand, stats that every day, Jesus Murphy, like I'm getting a headache just reading this stuff, right? So really it was just trying to understand where we were going to go from there. The city of Ottawa all of a sudden said, everybody's got to wear a mask. You got to wear it on the bus. People were scrambling, okay? And I had, the store next door had really big windows, so I just flooded the window with masks. Well, that was the activity that saved the business. People were coming in buying 2, 3, 4 masks at a time at $20 a pop here. Okay? But my masks were so different. They were the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Queen, all the pop culture. Everything else out there was medical masks. And right, so people said, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to show my rock and roll. So it became the new T-shirt as far as I'm concerned. Well, what I've done, I'm Hintonburg. I'm now at 1114A Wellington Street, which is next door to the Fab Gear store. And the reason I've changed names, I've rebranded the store, is because I was planning on retiring. And in December, I'm going, oh, I'm not going to retire. But I've committed to changing what the store is about. So I came up with a new name, Fab Gears Rock Shop, where legends are dressed. And essentially get that message out. I prefer if the shirt don't fit, you come in, you try another one on. People like to feel the fabrics for clothing. It's amazing. You'll come in and go, oh, I love that. Oh, can I try this? So that's the big difference. I'm not out to make a gazillion dollars. I stick the way I am, old school. I take cash, we take cards. Come on in and talk to the owner.
Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Vaccine passport. We have about 10 minutes to go here. Score is 8-8 on this idea of having a vaccine passport in Ontario. 1 o'clock is the news conference. Mike in Greeley. Mike, where are you on this issue, sir? For or against?
Good morning. How are you?
Mike. Good, sir. Thank you. Right to it, Mike. Let's go.
I'm for it.
You're for
and,
it. Okay.
I have a few reasons why.
Sure thing.
Number one, I thought Sharon, the previous caller, made a lot of really good points. Second thing I want to make of if you're in my same generation, you probably have a vaccination mark on your left shoulder, and we didn't get a choice at that time, but that was necessary, and we had to get it at the time. Polio and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're living. If people don't want to get vaccinated, I have no choice. I have no disagreements with that. But understand, they're making new rules in real time. We're not going back to where it was, and you had privacy. You could walk around, you could travel wherever you wanted without any indication or have to factor of proof that you've been vaccinated or not. This is new. There's a new normal, it's a new reality, and it's going to change and evolve as for the next few years. Who knows? Maybe in 5 years it'll just be an automatic a notation on your health card. And I believe at-risk people will be protected. They will have options to get out. Freedom of choice is fine, but understand the consequences. I do feel, because I've worked in the private sector all my life, private sector restaurant owners, et cetera, retailers having to police this and at risk of alienating potential customers. But I don't see there's a choice right now.
Okay.
We're all going through this in real time, and it'll evolve as it will. But for the greater good of society, of our fellow Ontarians, Canadians, et cetera, it just makes it easier to get along. I'm fully vaccinated, no ill effects. I'm not a young guy, but I'm not an old guy, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep. Okay.
So it's no choice. I think we have to think beyond ourselves and our own personal privacy.
For the greater good, Mike. For the greater good, in other words.
Greater good.
Greater good.
I think so.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your call, sir. We still have some lines available there if you want to fit in. Lyle in Ottawa. Lyle.
Completely and utterly against it. I have both doses, and it's going to create a two-tier society because there are people who are, as people call them, marginalized, and they don't already trust the government, and especially our Indigenous population, they do not trust the government, and they're going to have an issue force-feeding it down their throats. And I know they will. So we're going to create a two-tier society where people can do one thing and others can't, and it's totally wrong. Totally wrong.
Totally wrong. Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Patrick in Kingston, what is your opinion on a vaccine passport, certificate, proof of vaccination, whatever you want to call it? What's your opinion?
Yeah. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
So first, before I say for or against, I don't know if you are aware of the U.S. CDC's internal document.
No, I haven't read any internal documents from the CDC.
This is of July 2021, saying that in the U.S., there are roughly 35,000 symptomatic infections, people that are sick, going to the hospital every week among vaccinated people.
Yeah,
now,
vaccinated people. Yeah, breakthrough infections. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So, but that amount, 35,000.
Yeah. Look, I'm not getting into internal documents at the CDC. I'm asking a very basic question. When you go to a restaurant in 3 weeks from now, you will have to show that you are fully vaccinated, or you're not allowed in the restaurant. Are you for that or against it?
Yeah. So the point I'm making, because it does not make a difference, there's no need for it. Whether you're vaccinated or not, you're going to be infected and you're going to infect others. And the vaccine were never authorized or approved to protect against infection. You can read it in Health Canada documents.
Are you going to answer my question, Patrick?
So I'm against it.
You're against it.
It's not going to.
Thank you. Gosh, it shouldn't be that difficult, like trying to pull hen's teeth with you. James, Ottawa. Good morning, James.
Hi, good morning.
Yes, sir.
I'm against it.
Okay.
I'm fully vaccinated. My wife, my kids, my family members are vaccinated. I just believe that everybody has a choice. And if they choose not to, if they choose to die or whatever, that's their choice.
Right.
Just like people choose to smoke. If I choose not to smoke,
Sure.
that's their choice.
Yeah.
I just find that down the road, it turns into something small and then it grows and it's going to segregate everybody.
But so you're looking at it this way, I'm free to do whatever I want, but it doesn't mean you're willing to suffer the consequences arising from my own personal choice. In other words, maybe I'm not allowed into my favorite restaurant, and you're going to accept that. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying there. I'm saying if they get sick or something, because when we're vaccinated, we were told, you get vaccinated, we won't have to wear masks, which we still do. They also said if we're vaccinated, we won't get sick, but yes, we still get sick and we can still pass it on. So if people say, what's the point? Instead of trying to push people into something or make them, scare them into it, they should try to educate them, lead by example instead of forcing things upon everybody. Like I said, I'm fully vaccinated, but I still think people have the right to maybe a little bit more education on it or something if that's how they feel they need to steer people in the right direction.
Okay, thank you, James. Thank you. Okay. Cheryl in Canada. Cheryl, you're on City News. Are you for or against the vaccine passport?
I'm against it, and the reason is when you go for your second shot, you get a receipt from the Ministry of Health.
Sure.
So to me, it's like putting another layer on top that they don't really need. If they have to, why don't you just take your receipt with you?
Well, that's what they say you're going to have to do starting 3 weeks from now, because the app for your phone is not going to be ready for another 6 weeks or 2 months or so. So
yeah, well, but then why
that receipt that you said?
Why do you need the passport?
Well, that's going to be your passport, but the idea is you're going to have to show it. I mean, you're going to have to show it, Cheryl. But you're going to have to show it to whoever is running the restaurant or whatever.
I know, but you can take your receipt and show that. Why?
And my question is, do you think it's right that they should even ask for it?
No, I don't.
You
actually.
Don't? Okay.
No, it's first of all, you got tons of people. I don't have a smartphone. Lots of people don't have access to that, and to me, the whole thing's getting totally insane and out of control.
Insane and out of control. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Darlene, are you for or against a vaccine passport?
I am absolutely for.
Absolutely for it. Okay.
And passport, full vaccination, and like the other woman, she's not aware of what's going on. And maybe the hospitals should look at, because the percentage of people that with COVID-related illnesses that end up in hospital, it's because they haven't been vaccinated. So maybe the hospitals, I know this is never going to happen, never should, look at them and say, where's your passport? We don't want to be affected. No, it's not going to happen. Also like to know the name of the restaurant owner, because I sure as hell would not go to his restaurant.
All right, Darlene, thank you. Brian in Carleton Place. Brian.
Yes, good morning.
For or
welcome
against?
to the new Republic of Canada. I'm 100% against the passports and 100% against what our governments around the world are doing.
All right, thank you. Your dogs don't sound too impressed either. Last call here. Rodney.
Hi.
Quickly, sir. 30 seconds or less.
I'm for, and I'm hoping that it comes with a very big educational program.
Okay.
That would make your job a lot easier, just listening to a lot of the callers that have called in with a lot of misinformation.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Wow. That may be the most calls we've ever fit into that hour. It's 13-11 in the end. And the opponents of vaccine passports take the day on the Rob Snow Show. Valley Views coming up next with my good friend Bruce McIntyre. We're going to talk about that race in Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke. And the political winner, Cheryl Gallant. That's coming up next. on City News.
This
Smith Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, September 1st. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, 18 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Federal election platform for the Liberals is now out. It includes tens of billions of dollars in new spending and additional promises around gun regulation, abortion access, and vaccinations. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
Yeah, details of the platform just being released right now. It includes a total of $78 billion in new spending over the next 5 years, but with new taxes and revenue, that should be reduced to about $50 billion. No balanced budget plan, though. Some of the new promises would be to establish regulations under the Canada Health Act to govern the accessibility of sexual and reproductive health, like abortion. Provinces that don't provide access to its citizens will see a reduction in health transfers. The Liberal platform will also penalize provinces that force extra billing on publicly insured services. This is an attempt to stop any two-tiered health care. There's also a crackdown on their ban for assault weapons. The gun buyback program would be mandatory. There's also $1 billion to help provinces ban handguns in their jurisdictions. This is on top of promises of $10 a day childcare and paid sick leave. Meanwhile, the New Democrats say that they would use federal lands to help ease Canada's housing crisis, and the Conservatives will make an announcement in Ottawa later today. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Sun and cloud today with the high near 24 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy and down to 12. Feel on the cool side, but 12 is the average low. And tomorrow, sun and cloud, the high near 20. For today, the high near 24.
And right now in Ottawa and in Smith Falls, it's 18 degrees. City News Time, 11:03, 656 more cases of COVID-19 in Ontario today. The province says they are reporting another 13 deaths. 6 of them are from more than 2 months ago, though. 22 of these new cases are in Ottawa, 4 in Eastern Ontario. No new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. An adjustment in Renfrew showing now 1 fewer case. Of the total today, 504 cases are in people who are not fully vaccinated or have an unknown vaccination status. 152 of the cases are in fully vaccinated people. The province is set to announce a highly anticipated COVID-19 vaccine certification program today. The Premier is scheduled to make the announcement today, along with Health Minister Christine Elliott and Dr. Kieran Moore, the Chief Medical Officer of Health for the province. That announcement coming at 1 o'clock this afternoon. A government source confirming that Ford will announce a COVID-19 proof of vaccination program that has been a contentious issue for the province. Ottawa police have charged a 49-year-old woman from Gatineau with falsely working as a nurse. Bridget Claroux was arrested on charges of working in a medical and dental clinic in the East End. Among her duties, administering medication that included injections into patients. She is now facing 5 charges in Ottawa. Police allege she does use various aliases and identities. We have her picture up at ottawa.citynews.ca. If anyone has any information about this person, they're asked to contact Ottawa Police. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News. 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Mr. Trudeau's taking questions now. And they're making a big deal out of this. His Liberal platform, he's taking questions now, releasing the Liberal platform 17 days into the election.
Investing in the fight against climate change, investing in childcare, because we know that that sets us on a path of growth, and that continues to decrease in a responsible way our deficit and our debt as a proportion of the size of our economy. But you don't just have to take my word for it. I'm happy to turn it over to our extraordinary finance minister, Gst Freeland, to follow up on the fiscal responsibleness of this plan. Gst.
All right. I wanted to start with a little bit of federal politics because it's time for Valley View with Bruce McIntyre from the Eganville Leader. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah,
Politics in Renfrew County. Wow.
Because federal politics is actually part of our discussion today because the editorial in the Eganville Leader, which is out today, by the way, best $2 you'll ever spend for news in the Valley, is headlined Cheryl. and let me read a little bit from it here. Did you write this, or did Gerald write this? Or?
Gerald is the man responsible for it goes out the door.
All right. Okay. So. He's the publisher. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the Eganville Leader's editorial because Cheryl Gallant is the Renfrew Nipissing Pembroke incumbent for the Conservatives. It has been suggested, reads the editorial, that perhaps the best thing Renfrew Nipissing Pembroke MP Cheryl Gallant could do for a Conservative Party, especially during the election campaign, is pitch a deep tent in Algonquin Park and stay there until after the voting is ended. What a sad, sad comment on our sitting MP who has represented this riding for over 2 decades since her surprise election in 2000 over incumbent Hec Cloutier, who was defeated by the gun issue. We talked about that last week, you and I did. The gun registry, right? The gun registry. Since then, Mrs. Gallant, though widely popular among a segment in the riding when she rallies to her pro-guns, pro-life issues, has done little to advance in the party ranks of the Alliance Party, now the Conservative Party. In fact, she has been relegated to the back benches and has been muzzled by successive party leaders who were embarrassed by her antics or comments. Needless to say, the national media have a field day with Mrs. Gallant and love to splash stories about her ill-thought remarks on newscasts and newsprint. Her latest gaffe forced current party leader Aaron O'Toole to go on the defensive, but he didn't, who has held a strong grasp on the riding for the last 2 decades and is undoubtedly a shoo-in for re-election. I'll just read you the last line because I don't want to give it all away. We can't take the embarrassment anymore. Wow. That's the paper of record. I would suggest to you that is the paper of record in Renfrew County.
It's we had to come up with another headline for editorial. I mean, we've gone back how many times in your editorials about this and just try to get a new twist on it. So, yes, as your listeners are aware that Mrs. Gallant, it seems to be a repetitive election program she runs that she has to do something to embarrass the party, and the leader has to make excuses for her. And I'm not sure she'll get laryngitis this time, but yeah, she basically said that the Liberals are part of a worldwide coup, secret plot to bring in more lockdowns to really shut down the population and keep them under control. So,
climate lockdown, yeah.
It's all part of the UN agenda, all part of the UN Agenda 21.
Oh, yes. I've heard
that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
But she's going to win.
But there's no doubt she's going to win again, right?
No doubt. And it's too bad. We have something that I've noticed as I moved here. We put up a very good slew of candidates that challenge her. This year we have a lawyer from Deep River, Jody Primo, who I know quite well. I've seen her in court. She's very educated, very well-rounded person. We have Cindy Mills, and our military wife. We have the Green Party, Michael Laverriere. I should make a correction to your listeners. Last week I said Ian Smith. My apologies. It's Michael Laverriere. And, didn't really break the national media, but our libertarian is no longer libertarian. He's an independent. So that did make the national headline.
Okay, whatever. No, I missed that one on the news. But nevertheless, I think the publisher's point is, sure, she wins, but then, what's the point? When do you ever hear from her, right? She's muzzled within her own party. She's an outsider in her own party, basically.
And she has a very strong base. And the thing is, Rob, when you look at the 20 years accomplishments, again, it's not all her fault. We no longer have a railway line. Our numbers at Atomic Energy have been drastically reduced. We still haven't got the 4-lane highway going. Major part of the county, we lose on all these things, and it's frustrating.
It's frustrating. Okay. Yeah. But not about to end anytime soon, right? No, it's not going to end anytime soon. If anything, she may, because the Conservatives are doing so well in the election, as of now, anyway, I mean, anything could change, but she may do even better this time around. Who knows?
The numbers may be there. For a couple of elections, she was going down. She went from the low 60s to the low 40s. But the last election, I believe she was about 58%. I wouldn't be surprised she gets over 60% again. This is the last election. We had 14 candidates. It's really wild. So this year has calmed down a bit. So that's our life in Renfrew County for the election. So a lot of mail-in ballots. I received mine this week, so I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
So it's busy spot out here.
You're getting a grow-up.
Yeah, well, not me personally. I can't afford it.
No, not you. But in Bonnechere Township, right? Bonnechere Valley Township.
Yes. I was impressed they made a decision. This is the council that's known for kicking the can down so far the road you lose sight of it. They've actually made a decision on this. There will be a marijuana plant going in the Foymount, which is the former Canadian Air Force Base Foymount, part of NORAD. It was our highest point in Canada for radar detection. There are some caveats, though. There are some conditions, of course. The neighborhood had a town hall meeting to raise some concerns, and the rezoning was allowed with the conditions that they have to meet the concerns of the residents. And there's quite a list they have to go through. And the thing it comes down to, because the owner says, we meet all the regulations that's required in Canada and province. I mean, we'll do it. We'll definitely do it. We want to be bad neighbors, but, So it will be coming, and it's called Delcan, and we're looking forward to it, but it will bring some employment in, which is good, and we'll just see how the neighbors react to it. We'll have to wait and see.
To wait and see. Okay.
To wait and see, your team. I had a very nice weekend, Rob. I was up at Golden Lake this past weekend.
Oh, yes,
okay. Walk for Joey Commanda. It was pretty breathtaking. It really was.
I bet that was. Yeah.
250 people, a lot of them are elders that barely walk, but they made the walk, and they came into the graveyard, and they released the spirit of Joey Commanda. And the one thing I learned was when he was down there as a young boy, there was 4 Mohawks that were there on Sunday, and when they came to residential school, they didn't know anyone, the 2 little boys, and they said, They came up to make friends with the Mohawks, and they said, you know what, we'll watch you, because they were getting beat up or bullied regularly by the other kids. And because they're the outsiders, the Mohawks took them under their wing, and when they came back on Sunday, they said basically that we protected Joey then, and we're protecting him now, and we release him, and good luck, Joey. So it was very moving.
And what else is big news up the line?
Well, it's actually quiet. The agriculture, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a farmer. He didn't want to give me a yes. So I said, how are you sleeping, Daddy?
Oh, we're losing you, Bruce. We're losing you. Talk right into the phone, Bruce. Talk right into the phone.
Rob.
There you go.
I'm sorry, Rob, about that. So what his answer was to me, the Renfrew Fair. It's coming. It's
the Renfrew Fair. Yeah, I heard that this week. That's where Bruce and I met for the first time. I actually thought I was in Arnprior at the time. I've told that story before, but
that's very exciting fair. The no demolition derby, unfortunately. That'll be an individual event. It's a crowd draw. It draws them in by the thousands. So that'll keep us busy.
Well, it'll be nice to be back. I mean, for all of those fall fairs and the agricultural societies, and a chance for the 4-H members to show their wares and everything else, it's part of the fall experience in the Valley to have those fairs.
It is,
so,
and it is the culture. I mean, the culture is to go to these fairs, and not just for the participants, the volunteers. I mean, they love this stuff, so it's good to get them back as well.
And I mean, what would Trooper do without them, right? So.
I don't know if you had a chance, Rob, but in today's paper, I know you had the Prime Minister on at the beginning of my segment. Yep. We have a picture in there for you of Big Joe Mufferaw. So we put it in there for you. To make it go. I was going through the park last week, and I saw two people painting. Of course, I put in reverse, go back, and said, what are you doing? And they were giving Big Joe Mufferaw a makeover. He's been there 20 years, wooden sculpture.
Okay.
He's looking tired, so they're that's part of the Caboose Committee.
Well, speaking of the Renfrew Fair, in Reflections of a Century is a segment that you have, and you say it's the most popular. It's the most popular segment in the paper, right?
Yes,
and you do 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and it says, 50 years ago, man. Diefenbaker to open Renfrew Fair. It says this year's Renfrew Fair. This is it says here. This year's Renfrew Fair will be officially opened by Right Honorable John Diefenbaker. The 118th edition of the fair, sponsored by the Renfrew Agricultural Society, runs from September 8th to the 11th. T.F. Barnett, president of the society, said he was most pleased Mr. Diefenbaker had accepted the invitation to attend the fair and participate at the opening ceremonies. So,
need to go in the bumper cars.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
And Rob, if you're going to our listeners out there, if they buy one today, it's only $2. Page A10, old meets new, and it's we get them. They're coming up more regularly now. The auction sales, the farm sales.
Oh yeah, okay.
And this is outside of Douglas, between Douglas and Eganville, and the property sold, the 5th generation farm, sold to a Mennonite family, Mr. Martin, I believe, and they will transform what they've done to every property. They have made dying, sad-looking land into rich, flush, beautiful, creating things. It's just amazing how the Mennonite community has really instilled a real sense of pride in the agricultural sector around here. It's very impressive.
Okay.
So Mennonite bought the old house, and there's good pictures on there because they don't see photographs of Mennonites very often. We don't take their photos, but sometimes they will allow us. So it's one of those occasions.
Yep. Yeah, just scrolling through my electronic version of the paper here. Lots of great pictures, especially of the commando walk that you went to, as you imagined, and lots of big ads about back to school.
We are ready.
About back to school, right? Yeah. Okay.
I hope we're ready.
Great stuff.
What else can I tell you? What else is going on? This long weekend, we have invite all our listeners out there to come up and enjoy some fishing up here, because this is the weekend that is very popular. Just leave the COVID behind. But
sure.
And stay by yourself on the lake. And Rob, we had our first person diagnosed with COVID in the last 8 days. That occurred on Monday night. So we've had one person in the last 8 days that has tested positive for COVID. The immunization clinics will be winding down. We have almost 78% of all eligible adults over the age 18 is whatever. have been double vaccinated. That's pretty high percentage.
Yeah, it's very good.
We're very impressed.
Yeah, it's very good, Bruce.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got to run. Thank you. We'll talk next week.
Thank you, Rob. Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye. Bruce McIntyre of the Eganville Leader. We'll be right back on City News.
We just took over this business about a few weeks prior to the pandemic, but we've been loving the community, the people, very friendly. But it's been very difficult starting up a new business, just the time that we did, but I'm sure it's the same everywhere. We did take a broken business, which doesn't help us, but we thought we believe in what we do. We're very passionate about food, and we just really wanted to share the Iraqi culture through our food. All our recipes are homemade, so this is very unique. Usually you hear restaurants, shops, it's all frozen food or prepared food. So nothing here is prepared, everything is homemade. We get our meat and produce from a local farm. So supporting local is the way to go. We are supporting all the way. And our meat are actually marinated the day of, so it's as fresh as can be. Quality ingredients and everything is made from scratch. I get a lot of people when they come in, they say it tastes like Middle Eastern, like back home. So for you to have been to Iraq and have the food there, you can really compare and see the similarity. We do like to focus on healthy. So our recipes, not only the homemade, again, everything is from scratch, but we have from combos and to small sandwiches. One of our favorites and very popular is the chicken salad and the beef salad. So now you're getting all the protein and all these amazing ingredients that we all need. During this time, I find a lot of people are sitting at home and not enough movement. So to come here and get something healthy other than go elsewhere and just put, what's not so good for our bodies, makes a huge difference. So we have shawarma sandwiches, combos. I mean, if you're looking for a meal to feed your family, I would highly recommend the family platter. It comes literally with everything, with potatoes, with rice, with chicken, with beef, and we don't charge extra for mix. I know a lot of places do. Here we just add everything to your platter. And lots of healthy choices for sure. We're very passionate about food, and for our small family business, it's been good. Like I said, it's a little struggle, but we are not a chained restaurant.
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
It's 11:22. Final hour of the Rob Snow Show on City News. Sam LaPrade in between noon and 2 this afternoon. Su-Ling Ching is here, CEO, Ottawa Board of Trade. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Very nice to hear from you this morning. By all accounts, Premier Ford will reveal the details of his plan, his government's plan for a vaccine passport certificate proof of vaccination this afternoon at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
What is your opinion on this? Well, what are your members telling you?
Well, in general terms, Rob, as you know, as we've spoken many times, over these last few months, we've come to the realization that we have to find a way to live with COVID. So from the beginning, we've been taking our lead from science and health experts. We want to do whatever is possible in order to keep our economy open, to keep our businesses open, and to start to return to our life as we know it. So to continue with masking, distancing, testing, and any suite of strategies that would allow us to stay open, and that's how we feel about the passports as well.
That it's one more tool in the toolbox? Is that a fair way to describe it? Or
Well, I like tool in the toolbox, actually. I've been using suite of strategies. But
Suite of strategies. Okay. All right.
But
Okay.
tool in the toolbox is exactly it. Like, there's not one thing that's going to do it. We know that the vaccines work. We know that in other jurisdictions that putting in a digital system has encouraged vaccine uptake. And so that's what we hope will happen here, that businesses will have the opportunity to stay open and that we will avoid further lockdowns.
So I'm sure you'll be, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm sure you'll be paying attention closely to the details, right? I've heard it said it's all in the details, right?
Yeah, it will all be in the detail. Yeah,
so
go ahead.
what details will you be looking for? What will you be listening for, watching for? What are you hoping to hear? What's key for you in terms of messaging then?
Well, I mean, what we expect to see is that some regulation around the highest risk settings to start. The ideal situation would be that the requirements, the how-tos or the rules of engagement and the tools would all be released at once. That would be utopia. But what we expect is that it will be an evolution, right? Just as all of the programs have been, we'll be looking to the business community to help us determine what the recommendations should be moving forward once we get the details. But we hope it's very aligned with the other provinces and that it's built in anticipation of a countrywide system.
Okay. Our reporter in Toronto is hearing from his sources that for most retail, it will be optional. In other words, the business owner, they would have the option of wanting to see the vaccine passport or whatever term we're going to use for it. What do you think of that?
I think that there's, the government has the authority and the resources to determine how we roll this out. Okay. And I know that a lot of people are looking for exceptions. And again, I think it will be an evolution. But in general terms, there's a lot of movement between businesses, between regions of Ontario, and frankly, for us in particular, being so close to Quebec, between provinces. And so something that is standard, that businesses can follow easily and that consumers know what to expect, I think would be the most simple way of moving forward.
Okay. But you are encouraged that in terms of the Ottawa side of the river, at least, it sounds as though our rules and regulations will mirror those of the Gatineau side. That you're encouraged to see that, Sue Ling?
Some close alignment, because Rob, I mean, if we were doing nothing, okay, and we're 5 minutes from Quebec, and we are not, and we've been saying this all along, that there has to be alignment between provinces, and it's especially important for us on many different aspects of programs and policies, and this is just another one. So if the people in Quebec, if we're not doing anything and the people in Quebec don't agree with their governments, they're just going to drive across the bridge, right? If people in Ottawa are not agreeing with the way we're doing things, they'll just drive across the bridge. So alignment is really important, and particularly as we plan for recovery and domestic and international travel, calibrating across the country is extremely important. But the next best thing is for Ontario at least to take a leadership role here.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
I appreciate your work too, Rob. Thank you.
Greatly appreciated. Sue Ling Ching is CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. I'll never forget the first time I interviewed her in her new role as the CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. She told me her very first day in that position as the CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade was the day that the pandemic was declared. Global pandemic declared by World Health Organization, and congratulations, you're the new CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Trial by fire. So that's reaction from the local business community. We'll get some political reaction coming up next. This has been a hot political topic, of course. John Fraser is the Liberal MPP for Ottawa South, and he is the health critic for the Liberal Party. So he's going to join me after the news on City News.
1st of September. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, it is partly cloudy, 17 degrees, 18 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's seen certification system. Premier Doug Ford, Health Minister Christine Elliott, and Dr. Kieran Moore, the province's Chief Medical Officer of Health, will make the announcement early this afternoon. A 49-year-old Gatineau woman has been charged with impersonating a nurse in East End, Ottawa. The woman worked at a medical and dental clinic, and police believe that Brigitte Cleroux also used different names and identities. Her photo is at ottawa.citynews.ca. Anyone with information about her is asked to contact police. 656 new COVID-19 cases in Ontario today. The province reports another 13 deaths, with 6 of them from more than 2 months ago. The province says Ottawa has 22 new cases today. The Eastern Ontario Health Unit, 4. No new cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and an adjustment has removed 1 case from Renfrew County. Updated local numbers will come this afternoon. The agriculture industry is looking for more love from the federal party leaders this election campaign. The head of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture says it would love to partner with the federal government to use some of their lands to help environmental issues like carbon sequestration and improving the health of our soil. City News Time, 11:31. I'm Jason White. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So as we have been reporting, 1 o'clock, news conference that you'll hear on City News Ottawa, and you hear John Fraser as part of my Queen's Park panel every Friday, our panel of MPPs. You hear him every Friday morning, but he's agreed to join us a couple of days early because it is that big of a day. Vaccine passport system to be announced today. John Fraser, Ottawa South Liberal MPP health critic. Good morning and welcome back.
Good morning, Rob. And I want to say a belated congratulations on your wedding.
Well, that's very kind of you, John.
It was so raucous last week I couldn't get it in. On the Friday panel.
No, thank you. It's very kind, John. Yeah, I'm a very lucky man. I'm a very lucky man.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So, vaccine passport, John. This is something your party has been calling for. It's something that Doug Ford has resisted. So, what's your reaction to what you know so far?
Yeah, well, what I know, I know that we're going to introduce one. I think that's a good thing. We always seem to be scrambling, so the devil's in the details. Quebec's launching today, BC in a couple of weeks. Want to see how the government is going to, 2 things, I think it's 3 things, making sure that it's accessible to people. So it's not just a smartphone application. You have to give people who don't have that access that application.
Yeah.
That it's to the level of security that we expect from our online banking. That the government's going to stand behind the implementation in terms of talking about where it's going to be used, where it's appropriate, and that we'll give some support to like municipalities or other organizations by standing behind it. And because it's a public health tool. It's a public health measure to protect the unvaccinated. Because there's where you want to use is in areas where it's closed and there's a lot of people and you get the spread of disease. And the people who are at most risk in those settings are people who are unvaccinated.
Okay. We're hearing, things are starting to kind of trickle out. I guess government, reporters have their sources. Our reporter in Toronto, Richard Southern, is hearing from his sources that for most retail, this vaccine passport might be optional. Could be optional. That it's a long list, but it could be optional for a lot of retail. What do you think about that, John?
I think I think that in those situations, I feel that that's appropriate. We're talking about non-essential things, and it should be a tool that business can use because they want to protect their staff and their customers. The biggest concern, I think, is really around things where you're in a movie theater, where you're going to a concert or to a game, or to those areas. You're going to a restaurant that may be crowded and busy.
Right. Red, black, 67, senators, these kinds of things.
So, but we'll have to look at that. So, that's a measure there. I think we'll have to follow the science as we go along. And if we find that there are settings that are retail settings that are not essential where that's happening, I think we'll have to change and move. And that's been the whole thing in the pandemic, is to be able to follow the science, and then sometimes add additional members or measures and reduce measures at the same time. So I think the most important thing is to get it to those areas where that are non-essential, and that people are in crowded conditions and indoors. And as I said earlier, it's really mostly it's to protect the unvaccinated.
Yes.
And it doesn't really get portrayed that way often. So.
Okay, John, I want to raise some of the concerns that callers to my call-in hour raised, because as you can imagine, not everyone's on board with this, and it was very evenly split. I asked people who's for it, who's against it, and it was pretty much split right down the middle. People have concerns about privacy, what's going to happen to this data. I don't want I have concerns about that as well. But you must want assurances that about what's going to you want to know what's going to happen to this data, right?
Yeah. Well, 100%. Like I said, it should be to the standard that we have for online banking. I mean, look, the government has a lot of our data with our health cards and our driver's licenses and a number of other things. And it's the level of security that to make sure that people who shouldn't have access to the information don't get it. And, the concern that I have, it's good that they're here. It's late. The biggest concern is that we've wasted time and that we're kind of scrambling. So I get nervous about that level of security. We need to do it. We have to do this. And I hope the government has done what they need to do to make sure people feel secure.
Okay. Another concern that was raised was, and I understand it's been a long time and everybody wants to know when all of this is going to end, right? Mm-hmm. But it's just like one more thing that we have to do. And people will want to know, how long am I going to have to carry around this vaccine passport? Yeah. Should there be some kind of, sunset clause or something put on this? Like, we'll review this in 3 months from now or 6 months from now or whatever.
I think you're right. I think that you're right. You will have to do that. There's no question. There has to be some sort of review of this. I think it's reasonable to expect some sort of time limitation, that it's not going to go on forever. It is a public health measure, and what will happen is this is going to change over time from becoming a pandemic to being endemic, and so the government has to react to things as they change, and it's not it's not to infinity that we're doing this. It's to protect people right now over a period of months, maybe another year, in situations where they might be at risk. And again, the unvaccinated really are the ones who, from a perspective of not catching the transmission disease, who this will help the most.
Should people be able to get medical exemptions from having to carry this around if they are unable to get vaccinated? Not if they refuse to get vaccinated, but be unable to get vaccinated.
So, BC had a very strong position, which is there are no exceptions.
Right.
And
then you really are creating a tiered society, though, aren't you?
So, they had a very strong. To me, the biggest concern right now, if they're going to allow medical exemptions, this is what I hear, is how are you going to give that person the tools to let people know they've got a medical exemption? So, is it just going to be I'm medically exempt? I have a doctor's note. I think it has to be part of that passport system. If you're going to exempt them from the businesses and the organization, know that that's right, and the people with the medical exemption help them. So that's one of the sort of devil in the details things that I'm interested in hearing at 1:00 today.
Okay, thank you, John Fraser. Talk to you Friday. Thank you again.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Rob. Take care.
Yeah. Ottawa South Liberal MPP and health critic for that party, John Fraser. Aaron O'Toole is responding to the Liberal platform, which has dominated much of the morning in federal politics. This is kind of his rebuttal, if you will. We're listening in.
COVID-19, not just some, as Mr. Trudeau does. We lost billions of dollars of investment in Canada. We were running massive deficits before COVID-19. So we're going to create jobs and opportunity, build infrastructure that Mr. Trudeau announces but never gets built, and have a detailed plan and a disciplined plan to get spending under control to balance the budget over the course of 10 years. That's our commitment. It's what we're running on, and we will deliver.
Well, we have a plan to balance the budget over the next decade. Now, our economic growth goal is 3% per year. Now, this is an important goal because you must make sure that there's recovery in all sectors of the economy and in all regions of the country as well. We've lost $160 billion in investment, and that was happening before the pandemic under Mr. Trudeau. We had huge deficits before the pandemic under Mr. Trudeau as well. This is why Canadians and Quebecers deserve an action plan for economic recovery, and they also deserve a government that will really take action on infrastructure, on priorities for our country.
Mr. O'Toole, good morning. Omar Sachedina, CTV News. You say that you will require that equipment and materials for infrastructure be bought from Canadian companies or from countries where there's a mutual agreement between both countries. So which countries would an O'Toole government stop buying from?
Well, we have to work to improve our relationship with the United States. We have one of the oldest and most important trade relationships in the world, and our relationship with the United States is at its lowest point in modern history under Mr. Trudeau. Under 3 presidents, we see Buy American, we see increasing tariffs on softwood lumber, we've seen tariffs on steel and aluminum, we've seen Buy American provisions getting worse. I think we need to partner and improve that relationship. We need to work with the United States, particularly with respect to concerns about global trade with China. That will allow us to have a made in North America, a partnership approach to kickstart our economic recovery.
But
we'll leave
you say that you'll
Aaron O'Toole responding to the Liberal platform, promoting some of his own policies there as well. On this another day in federal politics, which we'll turn our attention to next. And what's in it for farmers? We'll talk about that. Coming right up, Rob Snow Show on City News.
Papa Jack was started 14 years ago, really by accident more than anything. A friend of mine had bought a grocery store, a popcorn machine was in there, he didn't want it, I ended up by buying it. My family thought I was nuts. When I first said, come and pick up this popcorn machine, my son said, what the heck for? I won't use exact words. But anyway, we started and it just kept on growing and growing. But at the time, I was the only one selling popcorn in Ottawa. But we persevered as a family, and here we are. So it's been very, very rewarding for my family and myself. And to see our brand name, Papa Jack, and Papa Jack came out of, I wanted something that was going to be very bilingual. So Papa, and then in Ontario, everybody called me Jack, even though my name is Jacques. In Quebec, it's fine, it's Jacques, but in Ontario, it was always Jack. So we married the two together, Papa, Jack. With the store that we have on Thurston Drive, it basically, the factory's in the back. If you come into the store, you can see how the popcorn is being made during the week. So it adds an extra layer of, you can see the sanitation, you can see how we do it. It's not like making popcorn. Most people thought when I started this, I was making popcorn in my garage or in my basement. No, never did. It was started in this building, in the back of the building, and then we kept growing and growing until what we have now. My daughter and my son came up with a brilliant idea to do a fundraiser online. So basically all people have to do is to register here, and we give them a special code number. And with that code number, they tell their friends or their neighbors, everybody, to buy online from us with that code number. And then at the end of each period, could be 2 weeks, could be a month, then we'll pay them a 20% of all the businesses that we got through that code number. One thing I'd like to say is thank you to all the Ottawa people who have supported us and support local businesses. Sometimes people, they talk about buying locally. Now it becomes that much more important to buy locally, to support your local businesses, because not too many of them are going to survive this. We're fortunate that we're so far so good.
Returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
We're turning our attention now to an industry that, in my own opinion, isn't getting much attention so far in the federal election campaign, and that's Canadian agriculture. Keith Curry is director of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, but he's actually in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island this morning, and he joins us here on City News. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
And how would you describe the level of interest from our political leaders so far in the issue facing Canada's agri-economy and our farmers, sir?
Well, I think it's twofold. One, it's kind of the same old. Typically, agriculture doesn't get a lot of attention, and the second part of that is it's kind of disappointing for a couple of reasons. Agriculture is an industry that's coast to coast to coast, and it's right across this country. 1 in 8 people work in the industry. It's massive in Ontario, where there's some 860,000 jobs involved in the agri-food industry. It's pushing the heck out of $50 billion of gross domestic product every year. And, it's a place that can be invested in to really help drive the economy. And so, we'd like to have those kind of conversations during the election campaign on how we can really, especially coming out of COVID, how we can help to really start to stimulate the economy going forward. And I think that's something that, we'd like to see maybe more prevalent as we go forward.
What are the big issues facing Canada's agri-economy right now?
Well, there's a multitude of issues. As you know, certainly environment is always seems to be a key subject during election times, and of course at the front of that is climate change. And, agriculture would really like to see the government partner with us as we go forward. Outside of the Crown, we are the largest landholder, in the country, in the province of Ontario and in the country. And we have opportunities on environmental issues. I mean, certainly with carbon sequestration, that's what we do. We grow plants. But we don't do environmental things in isolation. So for sequestering carbon, it also, starts with the base of our soil. We improve soil health and retain nutrients and do all kinds of other benefits for society. So, let's partner with the farmers and ranchers in this country and see how we can drive that initiative forward. If you look at what's happening in Northern Ontario right now and across the West, it's a terrible, terrible drought, and our producers are suffering great. And, the recognition of that through better programming to help offset what Mother Nature throws at us is also something that, is first and foremost on our minds and how we go forward on the next policy framework.
Okay. Speaking of environmental policy, I'm glad you went right to that. There is the so-called price on pollution right now, the Trudeau government's carbon tax. None of the parties are saying we won't have a carbon tax. Even the Conservatives now have embraced their own version of a carbon tax. How does that impact agriculture in Canada? What are you hearing from farmers about the impact of a carbon tax?
Well, it certainly is impacting us, and I think people need to understand that we're not opposed to doing our part, to paying our fair share of what needs to be done here. But we have no way of recouping a cost when a carbon tax is put on us. All the other industries and businesses out there, if there's a carbon tax imposed, you're paying more for their product. The consumer is paying more for the product. As farmers, we're price takers. We don't get to set that price, so we have to absorb that cost. We also operate machinery that we don't have an electric option or even a hydrogen option, for example. We try and minimize the amount of trips over a field. If I could put seeds in the ground without even going on the field, I would go for that option because that's better for my bottom line. But we have to work with the equipment we have, and right now we don't have opportunities to buy electric vehicles, for example. I think the opportunities for agriculture, the closest opportunities in that regard would be more towards autonomous vehicles, just because we won't be, driverless vehicles don't have cabs, don't use air conditioning, would use less fuel that way. But penalizing us for stuff that we have no control over. We have livestock buildings that require heat in the wintertime. We're a northern climate. If our chicken and hog producers don't have heat in their barns, their animals die. We have no control over that, so we're paying a huge carbon tax with no way of recouping those costs through the consumer. So it's about, again, having that conversation on how we go forward and looking at how we really, as I said earlier, partner with us to find those solutions to go forward to really do our part in fighting climate change.
Okay. Sticking with the environmental theme here, you mentioned the drought in Western Canada, which I don't think is really getting much play in Central Canada. I don't know about Atlantic Canada, but it's terrible from what we hear. And as I said, we don't hear much about it. How bad is it?
It's bad in certain regions across the prairies, and let's not forget about Northern Ontario as well. Our friends in Northern Ontario are experiencing the same level of drought. And it's bad. The pastures are dried up. Water has dried up in a lot of areas. Cattle are going to market because there's no feed available. The Canadian Federation of Agriculture actually has an initiative called Hay West, where we're finding farmers in Eastern Canada who have extra hay. We're getting it loaded up on trains and trucks and sending it to the West to help out. And if any of your listeners are interested in helping with some donations to pay for the transportation costs, we'd certainly love to hear from them as well. So, but it's bad, and farmers, in those regions are watching a lifetime worth of equity disappear in a matter of months, and it's very stressful on everybody. The mental health issues that are happening because of that are incredible, and it's not fun for those farmers and ranchers in those regions.
Yeah, I remember the original Hay West originated in Eastern Ontario, in Navan, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
With a friend of mine, of mine, Wyatt McWilliams, spearheaded that effort. So got quite familiar with that. A shame shame that has to happen again.
Wyatt was a real pioneer there.
He was. Yes, he was.
And he's still getting calls about this one.
I'm sure he is. He probably started making the phone calls, if I know Wyatt.
Yep.
I want to ask you about labor. And in particular, importing labor, farm workers, which is a big thing, especially in Ontario agriculture. What it was like this year, dealing with COVID again, with imported labor, farm labor. What was that like this year, in your opinion?
Well, certainly,
challenging.
Certainly. Yeah, 2020 was an extremely challenging year because of COVID and, getting access to temporary foreign workers and seasonal ag workers. And Ontario brings in roughly 20,000-ish workers on an annual basis to help with agriculture. We didn't get quite those numbers the last couple of years, but certainly 2021, based on the experience we had in 2020, was easier, but still there was a lot of financial requirements, extra financial requirements put on our employers, our farmers. Health Canada, Service Canada, the Ontario government have put more stringent steps in place to make sure that we really guarantee as much as possible the safety of the workers in their housing and in their workplace. And so it's gone okay. We are still going to be looking at this going forward. I don't think we're going to be out of the woods in 2022 with respect to COVID and where it's at. So we'll have to continue to look back on this year and how can we improve on this year. But certainly we need these workers. Across Canada we're short some 18,000 on-farm jobs as it is. Without this labor coming in, there would be a lot less harvest going on in our food products. So it's a vital part of what we require here to get food onto the consumer's table. And so we'll continue to strive for, working with the government to strive for those better stringent measures to keep everybody safe, including the domestic workers and the employers as well.
Okay. Very quickly, I want to talk about supply management. None of the main party leaders are promising really to do anything with supply management, but every time that a big trade deal has been signed in the past, the market opens up a little bit on the supply managed side of agriculture, and there's supposed to be compensation that flows to the farmer for increased foreign access to the domestic market for those industries. Has the compensation been fair, in your opinion, sir? What do you think? What are you hearing?
Well, I think, if you're a producer in a supply managed commodity, I think what you'd sooner have rather than get compensation is to maintain the level of market protection that you have. Don't give any more away. And I think most of the parties, if not all of them, have come out and said that they're going to protect supply management. It's easier said than done. I mean, I understand that anytime you're negotiating a trade deal with another country, there's give and take, and somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. But compensating a farmer for a loss of a market might seem like a good thing, but the reality is that market is then gone, and there's a lack of opportunity to sell into that market if you're a producer here. So the more we can protect the supply and managed commodities here from trade losses, then that.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.